see if it's on my phone. If it's on the camera or your headphone.
I turned the output right down.
Okay.
Did you make any difference?
No, it was probably your headphones. I can't see it on my phone.
Okay.
It's making noise.
It's funny, it only comes up with one channel, right?
Yeah. Keep having connection errors, I keep having connection errors with my phone.
I expect it fine.
We could actually just do it on my laptop.
Yeah, we could. You try it on the top there. So there's obviously something coming into the camera, maybe.
On input 1.
close to each other, there's an energy that comes
I know, right? This is the ginger corner. Don't mess with this corner. I am not talking in this meeting except for my 9-member report is voting. I'm just going to zip it. I'm going to be good. Do you believe me? That's what Catherine said. 20 pounds. No, well, technically 40. So when I went for shoulder surgery, I was 221. And at the doctor's appointment this week, I was 180.3. So, yeah. Oh, yeah. No, I started. No, it's honestly portion control, and I started going to the gym again. So, it was funny. I didn't really realize it until I went to throw jeans, and I'm like, oh, wait. When you realize that you can pull all of your pants off without actually undoing them. So then I went and bought jeans, and she's like, well, what size are you? And I said, well, I was in 38, but I lost a little bit of weight. And this is before I had my doctor's appointment. I didn't know how much weight I lost. So I've lost a little bit of weight. I was in 38. I'm trying 36, 34. I'm like, I'm in the 32. I go in and I'm like, wow, okay. We'll change that up. Okay, so I don't want to sit there.
Wayne, do I need to test this before we get started? I turned it on, so I just wanted to know if you could hear me. There was an old lady that lived in a shoe. Couldn't afford a new pair, so had to move out.
out of the shoe, movement at least.
All right. Kind of stuck inside. You'd think after all years of doing this that I'd actually know what to do, eh?
That's not fair.
Hey.
This is more manly. It's all about you, isn't it?
Right.
I can turn it on. Yeah, you'll forget. Don't trust me.
Just for your reference, because I'm not talking, I'm going to be good. You'll be good.
Because I did get the...
Yeah, no, I will send, yes, I got that.
You did get it too?
Yeah, I get that. No, I get that. When I send my invoice for this trip, I'll send the invoice for The two filings, the Constitution and the late because there was plane issues. They wouldn't let us board 25 minutes before the plane left.
So
They
the
wouldn't let her
actual
board, so she had
society's
to take
filing
the
and
next
then the
plane.
Constitution filing?
So she'll be here.
Yeah, I'll do it all at once.
She's on her way. She was and then see the plane.
It's Prince George. They figure she's a terrorist.
Yeah, I never did.
Okay, I'd like to call the meeting to order.
11:05 on March the 10th. Okay, first I'd like to welcome you today and thank you very much for coming out and investing your time in the BCCFA 2019 meeting for our annual general meeting, and we have a number of things to cover off today. First off, I'd like the President's Council to introduce themselves and which association they are, so we can go through that procedure.
David Rooney, VCFL. Was it me? Kevin Parks, VMFL. I'm Corey.
Belgrade, 12-man coordinator.
Matt Macri, flag coordinator.
Joe Gluska, President. Pardon?
Treasurer.
You missed me, you were right down. Cindy, BCCFA treasurer.
That's never ever stopped you before from telling me where I belong. Okay, so then just quickly going through the voting procedures. Lisa has a green card that she'll be passing out when we have to deal with voting things. And again, in our bylaws, basically it has to be a member in good standing who get to vote, one vote per association, no proxy votes, etc., that are there. And again, as we go through the meeting, there will be specific things that you'll know that you get to vote on and specific things that you don't get to vote on because the President's Council has the authority that you've given them to do that based on their Constitution. And again, we'll be dealing with a few of those things right now. We do have a guest with us, Frank Nazo, who is the president of the BCCFA, who's going to be talking in a few minutes. And I'm going to give you some opening remarks, and I think it's important to set the stage for not only today, but going into the next decade. And I think that's really important that we take a look at because it's 2019 and the next decade is going to be facing us because there are a number of challenges that we have to do. In the past few years, the football community has really been in conflict. And the conflict is between the new game of football and old school football. And there's really a challenge that's being faced to all community members as we go forward, how to deal with the two types of conflict. Because the change has happened so fast, some of us can't realize that it is positive. And what happens is that the positive aspects, again, we seem to miss sometimes because we remember what it was like when we were there, and it's so fast that it's happened that we don't understand that it is positive. Some of the things that I would like to point out that are incredibly important that has changed the game is that the game is better for the players. the game is also better for the coaches. And the rule changes that have come into effect have really been a benefit to the athletes that are playing the game. And I use this as an example of when I go back, and I understand it, and you probably will all remember it, is the NFL, and use this example, is that they used to put out weekly their big hits and how important it was. And guys were getting slobber knocked, and they were getting put out, and everybody thought this was great. Now it doesn't exist. The game is better. It's safer for our players. We have low insurance issues. Our insurance is incredibly low. Why? Because we've made the game safer for our players. Now what happens is that I wanted to point out is that 2 years ago, the BCCFA implemented no kickoffs for Adam, and now we branched that into Pee Wee at the 9-man championships. And what happens is that the pro game today has put that in. And one of the new professional leagues, they don't have kickoffs. They're following our lead. They want to make it safer. And why I'm saying that is important is that when they targeted that as the number one injury thing on the field, and how do you get better, their best athletes, and with paying big money, not injured, they said, we'll take that out. We're going to see how it goes. We haven't had a problem with it as the BCCFA at the Adam and Pee Wee level because, again, it made it safer for the kids because usually what happens, and there are several people up here that I pointed out in our championship that when they scored, they went and kicked off, they kicked a short kick, they got the ball back, went down the field, scored again. The other team never got the ball. So now it's better for the player, better for the coaches. So what happens also is that in the early days, again, when we introduced 9-man football, there was a lot of resistance to it because some people are saying that it's not necessarily real football. And now it's the bigger portion of our game outside of flag, which I'll talk about in a minute. So in today's society, there are leagues for 5-man football, 6-man football, 7-man football, 8-man football, 9-man football, 11-man football, and 12-man football. The issue out there is high school, again, is copying us because they're trying to implement a 9-man football league for their issues because the numbers are down. So they want to have more kids playing on the field and have rosters just like us. Flag, which has been, you know, a major growth for community football and for everybody in the province because we have a wide variety of people who have become members of our association so they could compete. We must be doing the right things. You must be doing the right things. Why? Because in the last 2 years, at the U18 level, we had gold and silver at the Nationals. At the U16 level, we won gold 2 years in a row. So we, and that means you, are doing the right things. The coaches are doing the right things. The players are doing that. We don't send all-star teams. We send our champion, and they go off and have been, obviously, promoting our game incredibly well. And our growth rate last year, and I believe you can correct me, we were about 2,500 kids, about 250 teams. Biggest single sporting event in Western Canada, if not all of Canada, because it's just football. And it's a great thing that's going to happen. Now, we also know that 12-man football is having a number of issues. And it's not just here, it's everywhere in the country. Here in British Columbia, a group have got together and they are trying to start and put in place a spring 12-man league. I hope it's successful. It just gives us one more thing to deal with. But on that success, we have to look at, is there a void and is there something that we can do to fit in that void? And I'm going to float this balloon out there about 6-man football. And now what happens is that if we have 6-man football, there's two things that happen. One, it's on a smaller field. And two, your rosters don't have to be that big. You can have 8 or 9 or 10 kids on your roster and you can play 6-man football. One thing I watched, the guy he had 7 kids on his roster for 6-man football. One kid got injured. He told the rest of them, you can't get injured. So he finished out the whole season with 6 kids on his roster. They never got off the field. They go, best season we ever had. Why? Played all the time. Not necessarily did they win, but the issue was that they had the opportunity to play. So my floating out there is that when groups go to register, if they're looking at something and they have 8 or 9 kids, that's enough for a 6-man roster team to play 6-man tackle. It's an exciting game. You got to watch it. You know, it's on YouTube, etc. You can see it. The other thing that's important, as I was trying to say, is that if we get 3 12-man teams in a league, you know, you could have 9 6-man football teams. So instead of playing, you know, everybody like, you know, 55 times in a season with 3 teams, you've got a whole schedule and a whole group of people, plus the fact that kids are getting on the field. And everybody in this room knows one important thing. Kids will continually come back if they get an opportunity to play. They can go anywhere they want and sit on the bench. You know, I keep using the example of, you know, one of the kids who was on the championship team, I asked him if he's coming back. He goes, nope, not a chance. I go, why? Went to practice every day. Coach asked me to go. I went to practice every day. Didn't throw me the ball at practice. Didn't throw me at the ball at games. Why would I come back? Why do I don't need to sit here. I can sit anywhere. So that's one of the things that we have to look at. This is the change, old school versus new school. New school is get on the field, show me you can't play. Old school is wait your turn. Maybe you'll get a chance somewhere. So how do we change that mentality, and what do we do going forward? I think the game is better today. I've embraced all of the changes, and I try to as going forward. I think it's important that our membership take a look at it. We may not agree on everything, but the one thing that we all agree on, and Valder's going to talk a little about this as we went around the province, is how do we get more kids playing a great game? And that's one of the challenges that faces us. So is there a void that we can fill? Is there an opportunity for 6-man to exist? Is there an opportunity for us to embrace the changes and go forward with a number of innovative rule changes that only make it better for our athletes and for our coaches? And the issue is if all our kids are healthy and never get injured, then the direct result is all our kids are the best on the field all the time. Excuse me. I caught a bit of a cold when I was on my holiday and trying to rejuvenate myself. All right, so that's the opening remarks, and it's about positive, it's about moving forward, it's about looking at changes that are going to help us become better in our organizations. With that, I'd like to introduce Frank Nazo, the president of the BC Provincial Football Association, to outline a few things for us.
Thank you for having me here today. I need a microphone because my voice doesn't project.
We're broadcasting it, Frank.
How's my hair? Anyway, again, thank you for having me here today. Just to bring you up to date on a few issues and if some of the progress, highlights of 2018 and where we're going for 2019. And hopefully there's a report in your package. I think there is. Anyway, just I'd like to point out a couple key initiatives and key things that have happened over the past year. First of all, the BCCFA is the recognized PSO in British Columbia for football. Our goal is to become accredited. Yes, the credibility part is great. We also want funding, to be quite blunt, and we can't get funding from the provincial government until we're actually accredited. So we went through the accreditation process. We were eligible late last year, late in 2018, and I got to tell you, it was a taxing exercise. The accreditation questionnaire, if you will, is about that thick by the time we were done. And then we had a panel interview to go through all the different pages and all the different initiatives that our organization is taking. And to tell you quite bluntly, they pointed out everything we were short at, and they knew right away as going through it. They were happy with the fact where we were at after 2 years of existence, but we still have a whole bunch of things that we need to get addressed. A couple of those things are going to be addressed in our AGM, where we're going to pass new policies. One of the big things that they talked about is non-member participation and bringing non-members in. So we're going to have several different policies that will hopefully be more inclusive. We've organized this, our movement, if you will, based on clarity and inclusivity. We have to be more inclusive, apparently. The couple other things they talked about, we need more clear policies on risk management, including concussion protocols. We've been going by the Football Canada protocols because that's your base minimum, if you will. Every organization here, including the BCCFA, has a concussion policy. We need to expand ours to be a little more encompassing. And there was other risk management issues as well that, again, our policies will will reflect that. So again, it was a taxing exercise, and it was a big effort. We had a lot of input from the BCCFA as well, and we thank you for that. Another highlight, we have a new insurance provider. We went to RFQ in late last year, and we decided to go with the Football Canada program that's now being used in 7 of 10 PSOs, 10 provinces across the country. We had a substantial reduction in premiums, which was good. I know the transition has been a little bit shaky, but like anything else, it'll be smooth. Lisa's looking at me, and she's going to throw something at me. But as time moves on here, I believe that the transition phases, it'll be easier and easier as we go on. Because of the savings on the premiums, we can rebate, I'll put that in quotations, it's for different programming for our various members. One of those programs, for instance, and we'll talk more about this in a few minutes, we're doing coaching clinics for the new novice coach course. That'll be all done by the BCPFA. The costs will be picked up for the learning facilitators themselves. A few risk management initiatives we're taking. As I said, we have to revise our concussion protocols and our concussion policy, and that'll be done as well. Also, our background check policies. We've tried to maintain a minimum standard because every league, every association, whether it be here, junior, or the officials association, they have their own policy. So we've set a baseline minimum, and apparently that's not good enough. So we need to revise our policies, and to be blunt, it's going to most likely reflect what's going on with the BCCFA policy. That seems to be the most encompassing of all the membership groups. We're also looking at, as a risk management initiative, cloud-based medical records. There's a couple different companies that do this. Basically, all the players' information is stored on the cloud. And don't ask me technical questions because it's just not my bag. But anyway, so your trainer on the field, if the player gets injured, they can bring up the medical record, tell all the allergies, his concussion history or medical history, whatever the case may be. And that'll be readily available to the trainer on the sideline. If the player has to go to the hospital, they can access that record as well from the cloud to give it more efficient medical treatment and the medical plan. We're also looking at the responsible coaching movement. And this is something I'm going to be pushing upon all our members over the next year. Basically, it's in a nutshell, there's 3 principles to this. First one is rule of 2. Any minor cannot be with a single adult at any time. And the second part is background checks, which we all do to various degrees, but we'll spell that out a little bit more. And the third part is ethics training. Now, our members, including the BCCFA members, have all this in place already. I like this. I even got a page turner. That's great. Anyway, all our members have some portion of this already. It's just tweaking it. And this is a national initiative, and by the end of this, we're going to pledge, whether it be your organization, the league, or the BCCFA, we're going to pledge to be responsible. We're going to be pledged to the responsible coaching movement because, again, it fits in with everything we're trying to do when it comes to the safety of the players. Excuse me. This question already.
As far as the coach's ethical training,
Yes.
is that going to be over and beyond the novice coach training? Because there is an ethics section involved in that novice coach training.
There is. I need to get back to you on that. I don't have the answer to that, but we do. Every coach has to take making ethical decisions. So that alone will be should qualify. That's what I'm saying. But there's 2 parts to it, and the clarification is if we need 2 parts of the making ethical decisions or just the intro part. Okay, some initiatives for 2019. I'll take it. You can interrupt me with questions, or we can wait till the end, either or. Development camps. We're partnering with the BC Football Conference, Junior Football, to deliver development camps to U14, U12, and U10 right across the province. This is going to happen in June. We believe that partnering up with the BCFC is a great opportunity for community coaches and junior coaches to get together, more of an introduction, have all the networking things that come with it would be great. So anyway, in any area where there's a junior team, it'll be the camp will be in that area. The north, we'll discuss. The only one we need to discuss is how we're going to do it in the Prince George area, but that'll happen in June. So again, why we're doing the U14? These are Football Canada Pathway Development Camps. So over the 2 years of our existence, we've been looking at the U18 and U16 development, only because, to tell you quite bluntly, it was low-hanging fruit. It was easy to do, but we need to close the loop on the U14, 12, and 10. So we'll have development camps based on Football Canada, the long-term athletic development plan. It's online if anyone needs to read it. And so we're trying to close that loop. So that'll be in various places in the province in the month of June, and dates will come hopefully by our AGM in a couple weeks. The other thing we're trying to close the loop on is U8. Now U8 and U6, this is, as we're talking about how we're going to develop, how we're going to bring new players into the fold and get them hooked on football, if you will. We're going to pilot a project with an organization called Sportball. Sportball has got the franchises all around the province, and they've agreed to run U8, U6 programs for us. In exchange, what we're going to do is we're going to inundate every participant with information of their local minor community football association, and I'll work with the group up here to get a pamphlet in place, some literature in place to ensure that every kid, because they're U8, I'm going to call them a kid, so every kid that participates will know where to go in the next step. If they want to play flag, if they want, well, U8 will be flag, if they want to play flag, where to go, right? And we'll try to make it as seamless as possible for them to look it up and register. Okay, that's our goal, and I'll work with the group up here to ensure that we have that in place before that pilot project starts. The other thing we're doing is that we're also piloting a project in inner-city Surrey schools. We're in negotiation with the Surrey School District to deliver programming to Surrey schools. Again, we'll get the info, and part of that is to relay information of how to join football, whether it be at that point flag or tackle. And that'll happen. Actually, that's going to happen in April. So we'll have to work quick on getting information from the local organizations who serve the Surrey school catchment area. Moving on, it's the other thing we're looking for. As I said, back to what I said earlier, Via Sport, which is the funding organization, accreditation arm of the provincial government sporting programs. If we don't get funding, I got to tell you guys, we've put a 3-year strategy in place. In year 3, we're supposed to have an executive director because we're a completely volunteer-based organization. Which, as I found out from Football Canada meetings, we're the only one, actually us in Newfoundland. So, but our membership is about 30, 40 times more than they are. So we're looking. If we don't get the accreditation, we don't get the funding, we're going to need more volunteers. Because the current group that we have, we're overtaxed, to be quite blunt. We set it up, and we set it up for that accreditation process. If we don't get the accreditation, not to sound negative, but we need more people because we're going to burn out, is what we're going to do, to be quite blunt. I do need to make one comment about what Joe said earlier about football and how the game is played today. And Joe and I talked on the sidelines about how the tackling has changed from when we played. Like, you know, I didn't get a melon head from being an arm tackler. So the way people tackle, where players tackle now is way better. It's incredible. If there's any head contact, it's incidental. That's all I can say about that. In recent Football Canada meetings, they had statistics from 2017, I believe, and football, in terms of concussions, football ranks number 7 in the country. But you don't hear about that. You know, it's just so there's a perception that football is a concussion-related sport. It still is, but then again, I think we go back to soccer. Soccer was number 1. Right? And no one talks about the concussion issues in soccer. That's why our insurance premiums have gone down, and it's a much safer game to play now. So I truly believe that. In closing, our AGM is on March 24th. Everyone's invited to attend. Register at communications at bcpfa.com. I'll be pointing to her because it goes to her. Probably in this room. Anyway, very good. Anyone have questions? Yes.
Sorry, it was a glaring
thing you just said there about the, where we are in concussions, right, as far as that goes. So do we have that written down anywhere? Like, can we not get that into the clubs and the associations? So it's like, hey, it'd be a great tool for us to sell this.
I agree.
Grassroots level, right?
Right. It's online, and I'll find out where the source of that online, where they found, I'll find the source of where those stats came from. Okay, and I'll pass it on. Any other questions? One other point I will make, so our U16 and U18 trial camps, ID camps are at the end of this month, I believe. Encourage your players to join, because again, it seems that we don't have as many tryouts from people. Let's talk about tackle versus flag football for a second. We have anyone that joins a flag team is a member. They pay a membership fee to the BCCFA. We can't deny them to try out for any BCCFA program. We need more community players who play community tackle. We need them to try out. There seems to be not as many, and I don't know why that is. So if we can have you people encourage your players to try out, because it's wide open. I see community players, particularly in the championship games, who should be on that team, and they're nowhere to be found because they don't come and try out. And it's only $50. And they get it's part development camp, part ID camp, so it's well worth a good value for $1. Yes.
A question on the new novice training.
Yes.
In Football Canada. Do we have clarification on who is required to take that? There seems to be some conflicting information.
Certainly, every coach. But let's go step by step. So what we've done over the past couple weekends is we've trained learning facilitators, and I don't know, I think there's 20 over the past couple weekends, and hopefully from every zone and every club. I don't know what the list was exactly. So those people those accredited learning facilitators will now go to your clubs and teach the course to your coaches. Okay, because if we're going to do it as the BCCFA would be swimming in muck. I was going to say something else, swimming in muck. So moving forward, the mandate was for 2019 that all head coaches and 50% of the coaching staff had to have the community novice coaching. That was unrealistic given the time when they released the mandate. And let's be practical about this. That's not going to work for 2019. As many as we can. Hopefully all head coaches can get done, and as many of the assistant coaches as we can. 2020 is all head coaches and 75% of the rest of the coaching staff, which I think would be realistic to do in 2020. Hopefully we can meet that goal right across the province. And in 2021, 100% of all your coaches who are coaching U14, contact or non-contact, need to have that course, complete that course. The one exception, and we found this out in the past couple of weeks, if you have the old NCCP level 1 coaching certification, you're exempt.
So I can actually speak to that. So I took the Learning Facilitators course a couple weekends ago. If there's any question, get them to log into their locker or provide you with their NCCP information so that you can check their locker. If you have the old NCCP level 1 football specific technical, you've already been graduated into the novice coach training. You're already certified as that novice coach training.
That was called
the NCCP level 1 football technical.
Which no longer exists, by the way.
Which no longer exists, but if you had it on your previous NCCP transcripts, what they've done is they've graduated you into this new novice coach. If anybody has any questions after about the locker and the NCCP, how to look up numbers or anything, come see me. I've brought my iPad, I know my number. I can show you exactly what that locker room looks like and show you where you can find that information. And every club should be checking their coach's NCCP anyway to make sure they are certified, but it did graduate certain people into that program already.
So the regular, I think it's the intro to competition, that
Nope.
wasn't.
Intro to comp it still shows on your locker, but it's not a graduated into this new program.
Okay.
And just to be clear, the reason we've done Football Canada has mandated this, I think I spoke at your last meeting, but those who weren't there, is because when you have U14, U12, U10, or whatever, below U14, a lot of the times what you get is a parent who says, hey, I'm going to be here every night anyway. I'll coach. Well, what's your football coaching experience? Which is zero. I coached, kids T-ball when he was 6 or whatever the case may be, which doesn't apply. They're trying to have a standard baseline right across the country for coaching, for coaches. Right, and again, this is good for development of these players as well. If you don't have coaches who have a baseline, and I'll put that in quotations, there's a good chance you're going to lose that kid. He's not going to play again because he didn't get good coaching, he didn't have fun, etc. Didn't learn anything. Right, and that's important, obviously, at that age. We need to hook them, is what we need to do. And I keep on using that term. Please don't. But that's what you do. You get a kid playing football, and they're hooked. For the most part. Does that answer all your questions? Great. Anyone else? Good. Again, thank you for having me here today. It's always a pleasure to speak. No one threw tomatoes at me. Perfect.
He sends his regrets. He's doing the rugby sevens today. So for Amateur Football Initiatives 2018, the 2018 Orange Helmet Awards dinner raised approximately $70,000. The 2018 Punt Pass Kick, 16 community football organizations visited from July to September, with the final held at BC Place on October 6th. He says about approximately 2,000 participants. The 2018 Play with the Pros took place on Saturday, May 26th in Kamloops and July 15th in Surrey, approximately 350 participants. The 2018 CFL NFL Flag took place on June 24th. 9 teams participated. The Kelowna Pack Attack represented BC at the championship during Grey Cup week. The 2018 50-50 raised net proceeds of just over $116,000 for amateur football. The 2018 Community Football Nights took place on October 1st to the 4th, and 10 associations were visited by 22 of the BC Lion players. The Tell Us Wide Huddle Up Against Bullying program distributed 750 tickets to community football players. And he notes flag football. BC Lions had reps at every flag football jamboree in the Lower Mainland from April through June. The BC Lions attended the flag football championship in Kelowna. At every Lions home game, amateur football, mostly flag was showcased through mini games during the pregame. BC Lions Amateur Football Ticket Fundraising Initiative. This initiative was featured at the Salute to Amateur Football on October 6th, where BC Lions tickets were offered for purchase to amateur football associations at a special group rate of $30, and their donation was given back to the association for each ticket sold. So 0 to 49 tickets sold, $5 donation, and the ticket, 50 plus tickets sold, $10 donation went back to the club. At every other Lions game, amateur football associations were able to fundraise with a $3 donation ticket. More than $6,000 was donated back to amateur football associations through this program, and it will continue this year. Amateur football for 2019 plans. The 2019 Orange Helmet Award Dinner, presented by Coast Capital Savings, will take place Thursday, October 25th at the Westin Bayshore, featuring our guest speaker will be Drew Bledsoe. Amateur pricing, again, is $2,000 a table or $200 a ticket. And just so you know, I'm on that committee as well, and amateur football, we're leading in table sales over corporate. So well done, you guys. 2019 Play with the Pros in Surrey is scheduled for June 23rd. 2019 Salute to Amateur Football is scheduled for October 5th. That game is versus Toronto. Most of the other programs will take place as they did in 2018, and he's just waiting to hear back on the status of the CFL NFL flag, because there's a chance it's not going to go ahead this year, so he's just going to wait back, and then we'll get that information out to you. And that's it.
Oh, you said it.
Thursday.
I thought I heard it.
Over Kayla,
Yes, sir.
can you send that out?
Which one, his report?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Next thing on our list is just a note from our championship sponsors. The first one is Baron Rings. They and just to let everybody know, through their participation as a sponsor, they give all of our teams except the Adam and the Pee Wee 9-man a MVP ring for both teams at each of the games. For the flag, they give dog tags and MVP dog tags for the kids, as well as in the 9-man Adam and Pee Wee, all the kids on the team get dog tags for first and second place and MVP dog tags. So it's important that, again, where the opportunity arises, that we make sure that our sponsor has an opportunity to make a pitch for the teams that are going to be requesting rings or dog tags, etc., for their players. And the reason for it is if they get the pitch or are able to do that, then the result is that, we're meeting our end of the deal. And the fact is that they've been very good to us over the past with the number of rings that they produce. And again, if you look at the number of teams that we have participating, that's a lot of rings that they've been handing out over the last few years that they've been our sponsor. The other group that we've partnered up with now is the Kahunaverse. And again, where possible, they have asked us to make sure that our associations and clubs give them an opportunity at putting in a quote on anything that you're looking at purchasing in that aspect. And again, the opportunity is there for a variety of things with them, and it's just making sure that our membership knows that if we have the opportunity and we're looking at things, that they should be included in that bid process, because again, it's tough to get sponsors or people to come on board if we don't give them an opportunity at a pitch to obviously recoup some of their investment in our association. Now, having done that, we're at number 5, the issues and concerns for 2017 and 18. And at present, I didn't have anything on our list to make sure that we covered off. We'll be covering off a couple of other points as we go through the list that may come back to that. The number 6 item is the adoption of the minutes from last AGM and monthly minutes. Again, this is an important one. We will need a person to make the motion. We will need a seconder. So if you can make sure that if you're going to do that you make sure your name is clear to Kayla, and then we will have to have a vote on that process so that we can record the number of votes. You need to pass out the voting cards.
Hold on. So before we start voting cards,
They can read the
Yeah,
minutes
they-
while they can go
just so
over.
that we have the votes clear.
That's
going
correct.
forward, VICFA. I don't know all of you, so you're gonna have to hold up your hands. VMFL,
And you can prove,
BCFL, SIFC,
you can peruse the minutes.
North
as you're
Zone,
looking.
not here. LMFRA,
She's on the plane.
9-man. I changed the color from last year. Flag. Abbotsford Falcons. Chilliwack Minor. Cloverdale. Just so you know, the sheets are pre-done based on information that was sent in on your legal name. If you're here and I don't have a sheet for you, it means I didn't have your legal name and did not check you with the society. I can do it at the break. Comox. Coquitlam Minor. Cowichan. Greater Victoria. Kamloops Community. Kelowna Minor. Lady Smith. Meadow Ridge. I lost myself. Mission. Nanaimo, North Delta, North Langley, North Surrey,
You get your steps in.
Oceanside, Prince George, Royal City Heights, Richmond, Shuswap Minor, South Delta, Spartans, Greater Vernon, and White Rock, South Surrey. You can only vote, one person only has one vote.
So then I'll give it to Shane right there.
Okay, the minutes are on pages 3 through 7 from the last AGM. And if there are any corrections or there's anything that anybody needs to ask about those minutes, now's the time to do it.
Have a
Motion and a seconder, then then I'll ask for discussion if there's any at that point in time, so it still gives you an opportunity. If we could get that done, it would help our process.
Please, the motions to accept the minutes as presented within the booklet.
We have a seconder down there.
Anna Brockbeck, seconder.
Discussion, concerns, questions? Then I call for the vote. All those in favor, please put up your green cards. Are you counting them, Lisa? Any opposed? Any abstentions? Carried. Okay, that brings us up to the Treasurer's Report, page 29, and Cindy, you are up.
So I am on page 29 of your booklets. The highlights was that we pretty much stayed under budget for 2018. I know it says on the report that it was about $16,000 that we saved for 2018 compared to 2017's budget. That number has slightly changed because Big Kahuna was sending all of the invoices for BCCFA to an email that was not accessible by myself. So there was approximately just over $5,000 that would reduce that amount. So we're about $11,000 in the plus of our budget for this year. For the BC Lions 50-50 for 2018, we received $4,714.82, which will be shown for next year in the budget, because last year we only got $3,000, so that was an increase. And then the Orange Helmet Awards for 2018 that we received in 2019 was $12,229.20, which was a slight decrease from what we got from 2017 going into 2018. So they kind of balance out with getting a little bit more in the 50-50 this year and a little bit less in the Orange Helmet, because they were less in the 50-50 last year and more in the Orange Helmets. And just to note, the statement regarding the fraudulent activity, is I was personally hacked, and because I had used the mobile app on my phone in Kamloops to pay some bills, that's how they got access to the BCCFA football account. There was approximately, I just have to pull up the letter here, $25,000 that was taken out of our account within a 24-hour period. I had no notification emails that came to me until one showed up after 48 hours saying that our vendors were paid. So the first thing I did was log into my computer, look, and call the bank because I didn't authorize, we don't have any vendors that we pay on a regular basis. And they kept the amounts under so that flags wouldn't happen. So with talking with the bank and everything else, we were able to recoup all of the money that was taken out fraudulently, plus an additional $4.50 in service fees, and it was recouped back to us. I do have the official letter from the bank if anybody does want it. I didn't include it with the minutes and the treasurer's reports at this time. My computer has been completely wiped. All passwords have been changed. No mobile apping will be used anymore. And I have purchased security software for my personal laptop so that it doesn't happen again going forward. Is there any questions on that portion? Yes.
Do they have an idea of who it was? Like, was it?
It was someone in, well, all of the fraudulent activity happened in Alberta. That's where the IP addresses were linked from. So they can't determine exactly where it happened, but the thing is I was hacked at the beginning of October, right? And I didn't even think of the BCCFA, the mobile account, because I only used it once on my phone. Changed all the passwords, wiped my computer, everything like that. And didn't even think because of the BCCFA. I figured, okay, I've done everything, I've changed passwords. They didn't take money out of the account until the end of October. So they waited until I felt secure, I think, that I've done everything that I possibly can. And right after that, I re-wiped my computer, re-changed all the passwords and everything else, so. Can I go right into the budget?
No, you have to get a motion to accept your report.
Okay. Can I get a motion from the floor to accept the 2017 report? 2018, sorry, going back a year. Yep.
Okay, so on page 29, I'm assuming that's where you were reading, but the numbers don't match up to what you were saying.
Yeah, you're talking about the financial summary report portion?
Yep, the top, you said BC lines 50/50.
That was 2017, 2018. The numbers I read were the newest stuff that we got from the 2018 Orange Helmet Awards that we received in 2019. So they weren't on the report because they'll be recorded in the 2019 budget report. So they'll be on that next year. I was just letting you know that we did get our money from them already. And then that's where the $5,000 difference in the $16,000, that's where it becomes approximately 11 because of the big kahuna invoices that were for that 2018 fiscal year that I didn't receive in time to do the report. Yes.
On your page 30, zone bowl and flag championship, there's quite large numbers listed under extras. Some of those extras, for example, the flag championship has $34,000, almost $35,000 in extras.
That's the previous year sum. Let me pull it up here. Previous year's sum. Are you looking under revenue or expenses?
Expenses?
Okay.
page 35. Flag championship, and then it says extra, sum of actual, 34,896.59.
Okay. Well, I'm going to have to find that information through the PL. It just may be because I wasn't exactly sure where it needed to be put into the budget. I might have just filed it under extras, or it might have been misfiled. So let me have a quick look. Extras. Okay, so what I have written down for flag extras are the championship food, the hotels, food, carts, signs, fields, gas expenses was 18. Championship. So it would have been the hotels, the food that was there for the volunteers and that. And it would also be the the traffic controllers as well.
That includes all the meals for the referees that we feed them that day as well. Golf carts. Sure.
So in other words, have them broken out like this is what we paid for food, this is what we paid for hotels? Yeah, I'll make a note for 2019.
Yeah, that includes our golf carts that we ran, the garbage, the people we had to hire to do garbage. So we'll just break that into a smaller portions. Okay, yeah, because all those, we have all the receipts, it's not a problem. Okay. Any other questions for Cindy? Seconder? Judy? Any other questions?
Can we get the financials in advance of this meeting, just so we can have a better time to go through them? Is that possible, please, Cindy? Like for next year, no.
I can definitely have them ready, and when I send them to Kayla, we can probably, it would have to be right after our meeting prior to this, so it'd probably be the Monday prior to the meeting or something like that, but we could probably definitely do that. Yep.
Last question on page 34, under coaching education.
Sorry, can you speak up?
Coaching.
Coaching education on page 34.
Yeah.
There's, I guess it's a blank description for 14,250. Do you know what the description for that was supposed to be?
Yes, I see that one. I'm just pulling it up right now. Those would have been for the clinics in Kelowna, Salmon Arm, Coquitlam, Prince George, Kamloops, and Surrey, the actual individual clinics in the zones. So they weren't put into the actual subcategory because it was event fees or trainer fees. We didn't have a coaching one, so I will make sure that we have an actual coaching clinic line for next year.
Perfect.
Not financial, but since we're talking about coaches, I'm sure you can tell me if I can be quiet or you'll bring it up later. But the locker room, we've been having issues with the locker room, the coaches' locker room for quite some time. And I'm just wondering if we can spend some time, maybe not right now, But today, talking about that, please?
Let's put that under section 12. And when we go to the BCCFA update, then we can slide it in there at that section. Okay, if there's nothing else pertaining to the budget, I would like to call the question. Please, with your voting cards, all those in favor? The treasurer's report, not the budget. Okay. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Fine, carried. The budget is the next item, which should be on
Page 40 and 41.
okay.
So I didn't change the budget much from what was submitted by Dawn last year. I did up some items based off of possible field increases or equipment purchase increases and that, but I tried to keep the budget very close or within, just for general, what's the word I'm looking for? General increases from the people we purchase from on their fees and things like that and all that. So that's why the budget is a little higher, but I don't even think we'll be anywhere near there because we were under budget this year. I tried to keep Joe in line on that.
Yeah, because I'm only driving a 17-year-old truck.
Yes.
Trophies, I know you got a significant drop there from 4,800 down to 2,500.
On expenses?
Oh, man.
Yeah, shouldn't that be like $5,000 budgeted instead of $2,500?
It's right at the top under
Very top, so it's
expenses,
like the sixth line down
12, ma'am.
on page 40.
Yeah, page 40, medals, trophies, actual 481502, budget 2,500.
The other question is part of those medals and trophies supposed to be 9-man because you don't have any?
Probably would be part of them are 9-man, and they were all lumped in one invoice that I got after the 12-man championship.
Because we ordered them all.
Right.
So it would have been a
I
group
think you still
amount.
need to add some money to that because
Yes.
the 2,500 and the 2,000 still doesn't bring it up to what you paid for last year.
45, and we're at 48.
I'd take it up to 5.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay. So go 25 and 25?
You need another $500 out of
Okay.
While we're dealing with that, the,
Medals and trophies, the flag should be reduced.
Medals and trophy for flag. Oh, yeah.
I got a quick question though, is, we've seen an increase in the flag expenses last year where the actual was 82,000, but we're still budgeting only 65,000. And we're banking on another increase in the number of teams going up there, more commissioners. The other thing that kind of threw me here is that if you look over on page 41, under flag championship, the event revenue is $545. There's nothing in there for the championship fees or the BCCFA fees. So kind of not.
That,
Oh, I see that.
sorry here, I'm new to the way Dawn did this, and I'm in the process of switching over to QuickBooks too.
Okay.
So,
So I think one of the reasons for that, Matt, if I may, is that when John did it originally, he would take our BCCFA fees, and as the budget was coming out and doing reporting on the past, he would break out the fees, the BCCFA fees, and break it into 9-man flag and 12-man accordingly to make the budgets work.
Right.
And I'm not seeing that on this specific sheet, I just see all of the fees under general, instead of being broken out into those 3 subcategories. So that might be where part of that breakdown is.
So Lisa, is that what you're talking about, the BCCFA fees, the 159,000?
Yeah,
That's what you're talking about?
yeah.
So that's the BCCFA fees, but the championship fees are broken down in championship 12-man, nothing in 9-man, nothing in 5. But I don't see them anywhere else on here, and those are. The championship fees gone into the BCCFA fees as well.
Is that on this page here?
Doing quick math in my head, that's what it looks like, Matt, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I would, yeah, I guess my concern comes back to,
They all came in under BCCFA fees according to the P&L record that I have myself. That's where they were all filed.
the championship fees.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it just needs to be split up.
So,
Yeah, but then my concern goes back to, like I said, if my budget is at 60, the budget for spring flag championship is at 65, last year we spent 82, and we're gonna spend, a 15 to 20% growth again this year.
Yeah, I think with the size of the tournament, Matt, increasing the budget for the officials would probably go up for sure.
Yep.
I'm also questioning the field. I don't recall the contract that we signed with Cologne on that budget, but that looks low. 1,600 looks low.
No. I think we were under $2,000 for field.
It's our new contract, actually, it's cheaper.
Okay.
We got a really good deal. So.
Yeah, we're
Okay.
getting the contract, because you're really extended that, well.
Yeah,
The budget could almost push $100,000.
We will this year. I think because if we see the same growth that we've seen over the last 4 years, we're gonna be up around 220, 225 teams. It's a lot more referees, where we see increase in commissioners, increase in food.
Hotel, everything goes up when you have more kids.
Build fields.
Yeah.
so without breaking out that extras, the extras should be increased as well, because, like Amanda pointed out, like the hotel costs for commissioners and things like that are gonna go up, but it's lumped into that extras without that breakout, it makes it tricky.
I guess you need a couple more copies.
Yeah, the flag fields in $1,602
Okay.
$1,602.12, so
That's a sweet deal.
Yeah, it's a good deal for that. We got the whole place, right?
That's
Jean has a question. Her hand's getting tired.
I didn't see her, I didn't see her hand.
I just had a question on page 41. In the general section, you have a budgeted amount for gaming grants. As I understand, I know that the VMFL can't get a gaming grant because the clubs get a gaming grant. So would that not, is the BCCFA actually able to get a gaming grant?
we try every year.
Have you gotten one?
No. We didn't get one last year, partially
Really
because the
budget for
report,
that?
the report last year for a gaming grant didn't go in because I was dealing with some personal issues. in April and May, so I missed the deadline, so I did not apply for a grant. So I am going to apply to see if we can get a grant this year as well. And hopefully, we can get 10,000.
In the past, we've been able to get a grant from Davy because, and this is going back, a number of years, that they would give us $5,000 to $7,000 based on all the things that we were doing at that point in time that qualified under them to get a grant as the parent body.
I know that the VMFL just recently applied and was told no because they're.
I'll tell you how to get around that.
So the BCFL would like to know too.
All right, then I'll tell everyone. So when you put in your application, it's essentially you cannot get a grant if you're going to be giving or using the money for other clubs that are eligible for a grant. However, if you're doing BCFL or VMFL initiatives and the money is not going directly towards the clubs, then you can get a grant. If you're using the money for the VMFL and not for the clubs.
Golf carts.
Or for the BCFL and not for the clubs. Then it can go through.
Like golf carts.
Golf carts.
I'm just saying.
It's
Joe, there's a question in the back.
How come you guys pay for, I'm not sure how your provincials work, but like game commissioners at the provincials, because my past through what we do, it's usually like a parent volunteer for the game, so is it different for the provincials or?
For flag?
Flag.
Well, for any, because your flag provincial, you say you guys are paying for your commissioners.
Flag only.
So why wouldn't a parent be a volunteer for the, I don't know.
we don't actually pay for the commissioners in terms of the work that they do, but we do pay their hotel and other expenses while they're there.
So their hotel expenses are not part of extras, but other hotel expenses are?
They are.
No, theirs is. They just don't get a wage. They get their hotel comp.
Yeah, because they're working both the Friday night, Saturday, Sunday, they're working all day. And they've either driven or given up their time, so if they need a hotel, we take care of the hotel. We feed them just like we feed the referees and everybody else. So that gets absorbed into that cost.
The other hotel expense comes with referees, is that we need referees up there, we need 120 referees, and not a lot of them can come up and have a place to stay up there, and if they're only making $300 for the weekend in ref fees, we're not gonna have them pay for their own hotel at $200 a night. I mean, we're not gonna get anybody there, so we have to make sure that we can accommodate referees as well.
Sorry, what was your name?
Greg Owens.
The other thing we don't cover, just to let you know, is that if they're going out for dinner on their own or anything in the evening, etc., we don't cover that. It's just our event day, so that we make sure that, we do feed them because of all the work that we get out with them. So that's part of the process to deal with a tournament this large. You've got people that are there 14, 16 hours a day over that period of time. So again, there's no stipend given to them. The only ones that get paid are the referees. And the garbage guys, they get paid. Because I can't do it anymore.
Undertaking, and I thank you guys for doing it because it's a lot of work, and I know a lot of people just bitch and complain about it, but you guys really deserve a pat on the back because you are able to pull it off every year. So thank you.
Thank you.
Back to the budget, one thing that I would like to see increased, if we can work it in, is our coaching education is gonna have to go up with the new requirements with the novice coach course. There is a cost to that course of $15 a coach. So that will have to go up.
I was under the impression the
BCCFA was picking that up.
BCCFA is paying for the facilitators to take the course to teach the course, but the coaches are still, it's still a $15 cost to every coach that takes that course. So I don't know if you guys want to chat.
You talking about the online portion of it?
No.
Because there's an online portion,
There is an online.
and that's $20.
Yes.
So, and supposedly the associations are supposed to be paying for that.
We haven't heard of, when I talked to Duncan about it, Duncan was gonna talk to Frank, and Frank was gonna talk to Joe, and everybody's gonna figure out who's paying for what.
My people are going to call these people, yes.
On that, so that, where does this $15 go to if our clubs have to take the facilitators course so that we can train our coaches, who's getting that $15?
Football Canada for the materials. There's booklets that come out.
So it's $35 for a coach to take this new course that they have to take, that the clubs have to pay for, that we didn't budget for.
We don't know if the
Why
clubs,
doesn't
I just
Football
said I don't
Canada
know
put
if
it
the
out
clubs
digitally?
are, I don't know if the clubs are
Why
paying
waste
for it.
money?
It's, these guys will talk about it, we'll figure out, we'll let you know ASAP.
They have spring flag starting.
Adam, you were in the course yesterday. Did they not say that we had to pay the $20?
Yep, absolutely.
And the clubs would have to pay for it. That was what was told to me after the training yesterday.
Yeah, what Duncan told us was that as facilitators, send him a receipt when we complete the online program. He will reimburse us directly for that.
Yeah, for the facilitators,
Yeah.
yes.
There was no discussion about being reimbursed for the individual coaches.
The course cost is $35. Between the football Canada fee and the online course is $35.
So-
It's coming from, just information.
So I have a question. So that's $35. MED is $40. Cost of safe contact? No, right? There's no cost of safe contact?
Not that you guys pay. BCCFA pays that.
One other thing too, with the novice stream, the way Duncan explained it to us is that this is going to replace the classroom portion of MED. So once this is completed, and in your case, Brian submits the list of Knights coaches who have taken it, when they go into their locker, the MED online portion exam will now be free.
Yes.
So that cost is no longer existing.
Okay, so my question is, if I am a brand new coach in community, how much is it gonna cost for me to get trained to what you guys are telling me it's going to be? Because every association's gonna have to budget for this. Sorry.
So at this point, I can't answer that question until the BCCFA president and the BCPFA president sit down and figure out who is covering what costs. Because right now, the Safe Contact, for example, the BCCFA pays for all of the coaches to get Safe Contact certified.
Yeah, we need some more.
So at this point, this is all new to us too, unfortunately. It came out and they went, bam, you have to do this, and we went, holy crap, like, you know me, I lost my mushrooms all over the place on Port Frank. And,
imagine?
oh yeah. So we're still working out the financial details of that. Joe's on the same page as me. We hate having volunteers having to spend money to volunteer. We spend enough of our time. Why are we taking cash out of our wallets? That being said, we've really got to look at the budgets between the organizations to see what we can do in this regard to get this done, to follow the mandates. Is that my politically correct response, guys?
Can I just ask, going forward, when there's this unsure information, I mean, we all got an email that said, your coaches have to take this. And we all have questions, and nobody seems to know the answers to those questions. So maybe the emails that come out should say, hey, this is coming, we're working out the details, we'll get back to you, instead of, everybody stop what you're doing and take this.
And the thing is, it also says the flag coaches have to take it too, right? So we're starting flag. I'm sure every other association is. So I have 20 coaches that have never taken this, and unless it's up and running anytime soon, it's not gonna happen.
Frank? It's up and running. So just a couple comments. As I said in my remarks, is that this was laid on us way too late in 2018 for us to be 100% compliant. It'd be nice, great, but there's way too many people, and it's not realistic. Number one. Number two, the total course fees, as far as I understand, reading the literature, is $35. $15 football Canada fee, $20 online fee. The other provinces across the country, have no beans to do with us, but the other provinces across the country are charging between $55 and $75 for the same course. And I think that's, in my opinion, it's ridiculous. Right? We got volunteer coaches. We need to have them to a certain standard. We shouldn't be paying through the nose in order to get that done. particularly at the lower age groups. If you're gonna do intro to comp, yeah, absolutely, you're paying for it, right? There's a lot of work that goes into that curriculum. We talk about the novice coaches, and there's so many of them, that we need to get this done as cost efficiently as possible. And it's like, we're not, yeah, it's just a fee, it's a straight fee is what it is.
Okay, at this point in time, due to a number of things that are coming out that we're going to have to make some adjustments to the budget, I would like to make the recommendation that we table the 2019 budget. Cindy will then go back and adjust those. What I would like to do is through the presidents, send that information out to each of the clubs, and they can approve it online by a simple yes and send back the email. We can tabulate it at that point in time and go forward, rather than, making a lot of assumptions or changes here, and at the end we walk away going, well, what is it and where's it going to go? This way Cindy gets an opportunity to sit down, make the adjustments and changes that we've noted here, maybe add a few extra columns to break it out for us, so that in, let's say this is March, by April, we'll have sent that out by the first, after we get the approval at our monthly meeting in April. Then we'll send that out via the President's Council to everybody, so that we can deal with that and get the approval of it. You see, you have a concern? Is there any concerns about that? It's just trying to expedite it versus, sitting here and covering off some issues that have concerns.
Outgoes from the account before the budget gets approved.
I don't understand what you're saying.
The bills still need to be paid whether the budget's approved or not.
Yeah.
The bills right now that we have are our conference call fees that we have, that come in monthly. And any bank interest and things like that, those are the bills that have come in. The other bills that have come in, they were based off of the 2018 budget, and they didn't get recorded because I didn't get the invoices until after January 1st. So right now, there's not much going out to be paid on the 2019, like the AGM expenses will get paid out of this budget when I get the invoices, but that's about it.
That'll go into for next year's budget. It's not coming out of this year. Yeah. And then in the minutes, there's always a thing from, Cindy gives us a report every month on our meeting with regards to the treasurer's thing, and then obviously that would, be an accounting of everything that's happened from January 1, 2019 going forward. And because of the budget, the issue is that most of the things that aren't gonna, my understanding was that there'll be a few things on medals and the flag budget will be proposed, as that's coming up in June. And the other ones will just be obviously additions to whether it's 12-man or 9-man.
I'll make a motion that Cindy continues to work on the budget for 2019 going forward, and your regular bills to be paid.
Seconder?
Thank you, Cindy.
Any discussion? Call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? One. Please record it. Okay, before we get into the reports, there's two things that I do have to mention to you, and I was remiss on this, is that the in your package you've got minutes from our monthly meetings. The February minutes and the March minutes haven't been approved yet. I asked them to be included in there so that there would be some things that were, that you know that we discussed some issues, etc. At that point in time, including one of the motions that will be dealt with a little bit later under 2000 or number 14. At that point in time. Okay, so it's now 12:30. Pardon? I believe that by 1:45 we'll be finished all of the reports, and then we will have a short break for lunch and for some individuals who need to get some fresh air. Okay, the first report is the President's report, my report, which is on page, thank you, 43. All right, I've talked about a number of things already today. All I want to do is point your attention towards paragraph number 3. And the issue is of the facing challenges in North America about football, and pointing out that it is safer. And there still is a concern about people that are under the 13 years of age playing, but that's a North American issue at this point in time. And again, we're looking at trying to deal with a number of things, and Valder is putting a presentation together, which he'll be dealing with a little bit later in our meeting. So I just wanted to note that that's probably the key thing that I keep pointing out in my report. Thank you. No motions for these, it's just Vice President.
My report is on page. My report is on page 45, I believe, and so I just have a few slides to share on the strategic planning initiative. So I'll do that now. And so, hope this works. Last summer, we embarked on a province-wide road trip. Went off and met with all of the zones, with the exception, unfortunately, of Vicva. So North Zone, Coquitlam hosted us for the VMFL. SIFC we met in Vernon, and VCFL and LMFRA we met in Abbotsford. And it was an exercise around trying to meet with all of the zones for them to identify what some of the issues were that they were facing, and then sort of look at that within the context of what were some of the common issues that were being discussed and raised at each of the zones. So one of the exercises that we did, and I thought I'd share some of the artwork that people prepared, was around what did the vision of football in the province look like. So it was quite an entertaining session, as you can well imagine. We have a few Picassos that did a pretty good job. So one of the things that we asked was for people to express what values we should hold as an organization. And so the process was that this happened at each of those zone meetings. We then consolidated all of those, and at the BCCFA face-to-face meeting in December, the group at the table here, and a few that aren't at the table, actually reviewed what had been proposed province-wide, and then prioritized them based on dot voting method. So the values that people identified that were important to us as an organization were leadership, community, growth, and mentorship. I think leadership people understand. Community, we are a community-based organization, so that's fairly apparent. Growth, of course, is a big issue for us as a football organization. But the idea around mentorship was that we have a number of administrators, particularly across the province, that aren't perhaps quite as experienced as in some of the other zones. And so there was this notion of having mentors identified that can provide assistance to those administrators in other zones around the province. So just wanted to explain exactly what that was. We also had each of the zones identify and then prioritize a list of initiatives that they felt were critical for them. And then for each of the zones, of course, we prepared a report so they have that information to use for their own purposes. But again, what we did in December was we looked at that list of initiatives from each of those 4 meetings and then prioritized them ourselves. So the strategic initiatives that we identified were best practices, shared policies. And that's around the fact that, again, different zones have significantly more experience or significantly more infrastructure in place in terms of policies and procedures, and providing an opportunity to look at that from a province-wide perspective and identify what are the best practices so that we can then try and develop some consistency around how we manage and do things across the province. No need to reinvent the wheel if there's already a zone that has that sort of information in place. Advertising and promotion, not surprisingly, another one that came up to the top. We want to find new and innovative ways to get kids interested and amped up about playing football, and so we think advertising and promotion is something that needs to happen. Safety and concussion policies and programs, and so I was glad to hear Frank referencing the fact that we have some work to do in that area, because again that was an issue that was raised in all of the meetings and again prioritized by this group, and so we'll be looking at that. Partnership and collaboration. So again, I guess not surprisingly, one of the significant issues identified by, I think, all of the groups was the break that exists right now between community football and high school football. And, particularly when you look at tackle, we're both facing challenges. And so I think there was a real interest expressed in reaching out to them, reaching out to the Lions, the universities, junior football, all of the other stakeholders that have an interest in promoting the game of football to work collaboratively to move the game forward. So, and then the final one was recruitment and incentives. And so that was around what can we do to get more referees, more coaches, and more administrators involved? And what can we provide by the way of incentives to get them there and to keep them? So those were the strategic initiatives that we identified. In terms of next steps, so what we'd like to do is identify a champion or champions to lead each of these initiatives, identify participants or representatives from each of the zones that would be involved in those, identify the relevant partners that we need to have at the table, so whether it's a BCCFA, high school, the Lions, whatever the case may be, develop an action plan for each of those, then have it reviewed and approved by the executive committee and move forward with implementation. And so I'm hoping that we'll be able to make some progress with all of those initiatives over the coming months. Okay, so questions? Going once? Oh, yes, Rob.
Last year, we put together a little group with Gene, regarding promoting the game of football. We came up with we made a website that had information for players, parents that dispelled a lot of the rumors. And we were talking about, between Gene and myself, we were talking about the fact that, yes, we're part of the VMFL. Our two clubs were just two volunteers, but this could be some sort of a strategy that the BCCFA should be involved with because on this mock website that we had made, I think we included all of the different associations in the province of BC. And even at that time, we were thinking that if this would move forward, that we would come to the BCCFA and ask them to fund this type of a website for us, to give us some access to maybe a better website, better search engines where people could, Google, and we'd be right up there at the top. Is this something that, with your plan, that you could look at?
Absolutely. I think, there is a lot of good work happening on the ground in each of the zones. And so really it's an exercise around bringing all of the folks together, sharing what you've already done, looking at that and seeing how we can build on it. Because again, if good work is already being done, there's no need for us to start from scratch. Let's build on what we already have. So if there's work that's already been done, happy to bring that in and then build on it. I think, that's the appropriate way to approach that. So that's the intent, is actually to get representatives from each of the zones involved for that very reason, so that they can bring some knowledge around what's already being done at the local level, so we can factor that in to what we do.
I think, Gene, did we not just kind of keep that for ourselves? I think we had like Let's Play Football.ca or something like that. And we had blogs, we had a blog on there. We had like stories that you see on the internet about, football not being the #1 sport for concussion. We put that there, like wherever, because everybody's got a story. Everybody has read something, but it's not in one place where, somebody can go and make it, read it, a parent.
And again, it's great that you've taken the initiative to do that, but it's the first time I'm hearing about it. And I suspect for most people in the room, it's the first time. So it's great that you've taken that initiative, but if it's not out there and being shared, then, it's not delivering on the value that it has. And so, again, it's an exercise around bringing all of the ideas and initiatives that are already underway and leveraging those to build something better and to provide broader exposure to everyone in the province that might be able to use it.
I know it's very difficult, with the people that are already volunteering with the BCCFA. Like, could there be a person that would be responsible for advertising and marketing?
Yeah, so that's what so the first bullet point is to identify a program champion. So who is the person that's going to be tagged with the responsibility for managing a particular initiative? And then that person would have volunteers from each of the zones, a volunteer, maybe more than one if there's interest, to support that person in getting it done. Because again, lots of stuff happening locally, but unless you have a local representative to let us know what's happening, then that work potentially isn't going to be factored in.
If it transfers from
a local initiative to a provincial initiative, that's where we can come in and sit down, because we do get various revenues to say, okay, for program development, etc., that we can come on board and support that, because it's now moved from a local one to province-wide, and that's exactly where we think that we should be investing resources, is how do we piggyback on those things that have already been developed, rather than trying to sit down and reinvent something that's not nearly as good.
Amanda?
May I suggest that we partner with the BC Lions and have a table set up at the games? You want to play football in BC? Where do you live? This is the association you go to. Something on the website. Everyone looks up to the Lions, right? Everybody in BC knows who the Lions are. I watch a football game. I see an ad. You want to play community football? Contact. Where do you live? Like, have a go-to spot. Easy. We're working with them. They come out. We have the resource there to use. I think we're just not using it.
Great idea, Amanda. Are you volunteering for the advertising and promotions committee?
No, I'll do the BC Lions part. I'll ask them to help us, but no.
No, and you know, really, I mean, there's lots of great information that was shared. You know, one of the initiatives that I recall in particular was there's one person, I think it's, is it Kelowna or Vernon, that is actually introducing refereeing in the high school curriculum. And so kids actually get credit for learning about being a football referee. And so there are lots of things like that that are happening around the province that, you know, are good opportunities for us to explore for the benefit of the entire membership as opposed to just being isolated to one community or one zone. So, any other questions? Jean.
I don't see any items in going back to the budget to cover any of this advertising that you're talking about, looking at doing. So I think that needs to somehow all of these strategic items.
So you're right, but until we know exactly what the scope of what we want to do is, it's sort of hard to put a budget figure to it. And so what I'm anticipating is that, you know, there will be some of these items that may have hard costs involved. And so for those items, you know, we'll budget for them next year, but there's lots of work that can be done at little to no cost. Working with the Lions, for example, to set up a table, per Amanda's suggestion, probably not going to cost us anything. So there's still, I think, a lot of stuff that can happen. For those items where there is a cost involved, then we'll budget for those next year.
I think what Jean is, correct me if I'm wrong, I think what Jean's saying is that you need to put a dollar figure in for some sort of strategic into the budget, whether it be $5,000, something in there. Because if something were to come up and you want to do it, at least you have funds allocated for it.
Cindy, do we have, I think we have a contingency line in our budget? Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's a good point. So maybe Cindy, as part of her budget preparation, can factor something in. But again, I mean, most of this is actually going to...
Say strategic planning?
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. And we'll make sure it's added into the amended budget and kind of look at what it may entail.
Most of this is actually going to be the human resource that we need. But yeah, there may be some hard costs depending on what each of those groups come up with in terms of next steps. Anything else? Going once, going twice? Okay. Thank you very much.
And again, I'm still watching the clock, and at 1:45 we'll stop, so we'll try and get through a couple more reports at this point in time. So we do have the VICFA President verbal report coming up.
I'll keep it short so that we get our fresh air break for Lisa and Cindy. You're welcome.
I'm okay.
Oh, sure. Throw Lisa into the bus. We had a very successful fall season. We had 8 teams in each division. All divisions got represented, both 9-man and 12-man in provincials. Our spring season starts in a week. We're going to have between 8 and 10 teams in every division playing 9-man and 12-man tackle ball, plus our flag league. Our recruiting is going great this year. We put a real emphasis on it, and our registration's up 50%. So we want to keep 9-man and 12-man tackle football as alive as possible. And that's all I have for the report.
Thank you.
Sorry, question for you. So how did you manage, you said a 50% increase, that's a huge increase.
We've hit all the schools, we've separated the schools up amongst the teams and associations, especially in Greater Victoria, and we've worked with high school teams to send down coaches and players to talk to the schools, and we've had a huge uptake.
The reason I bring this up, and this is, again, this goes back to information sharing, all this too. Something like this with such a huge increase. I mean, and there's not a club here that would like that increase. So again, it's good to share the information, whether it's at league level or club level. to find out, okay, what have you done that's so successful for you, right? And that's why I was asking that question.
Sure, you bet.
Thank you.
And it's mostly just been hitting the trenches and doing the legwork and the hard work in the schools, and it's really paid off. We've got a lot of kids excited about football.
Murray, just one question. Did you have a handout or a pamphlet that you produced for that?
Yes.
Would it be possible for the BCCFA to get a copy and then send it out to our members?
Find out whoever's web savvy and get it over to you.
Okay, super. That, again, that'll be a facilitating thing for us so that, again, it becomes important to disseminate information. Yes?
Do you have the same numbers for your spring tackle program that you do for fall?
I'd have to pass that over to Kelly for.
No. Fall is definitely bigger. Or smaller, sorry.
Bigger. I can.
Yeah, no, our fall is bigger.
If Murray's okay, I can.
Cindy's going smaller.
I can talk. The spring tackle, as past president for Bigfoot and the Island, the spring tackle runs Adam, Pee-wee, Junior Bantam, and normally each club on the island, and I believe there's 9 associations or 10 associations, so that's 30 teams. In the fall, normally we have Pee-wee, Junior Bantam, some clubs maybe midget, and Bantam programs. So in the fall, we're kind of smaller knit numbers, but they're still both successful that most of the associations have at least the Pee-wee and the Junior Bantam teams. So because the spring, it's 3 levels, and then they also have what they call the Mighty Might program in Greater Victoria, which is under 7 years for flag, which pretty much just runs on a weekend and jamboree style, just in-house. So your numbers are bigger in our spring tackle program. It's like with you guys, your numbers are bigger in your flag tackle, your flag program in the spring than they are in your fall program, I would assume, because you're smaller groups. You don't have your U14s, you don't have all of those groups in the fall. So, but on average, it would be, if you would look at it, it's fairly even between the spring and the fall, that they're about very similar with the impact that we have of kids playing football. Sorry.
Okay, we'll take our break at this point in time.
I was next.
No, if we had a minute to go, I was going to add him in because then he knew he'd had to take a minute because he wants to get outside.
Yeah, and there's food over there, so make sure you help yourself. We'll get about 10 minutes, and then you can eat while we're going through the rest of the reports.
Yeah.
But I have to capture Oh, because I didn't change the number. Some of the numbers that you're in, okay, so that's and it's like underneath what he did, and Johnson would get the high points for here. He created a budget last, so which will give us way better reporting and way better accountability on where we spend our money. As food fees, and then the blood to where they work. But I think what I said, and it just says the value to general. So then I December 20th. Oh, yeah, there's 12, so that's why everyone's all there. So it's better just to try to figure it all out. And this is like, I don't know what's going to be able to so you're able to getting all the all right. Because then I can customize it for us.
Thank you.
Oh, I've been tackling for that.
Yes, I will be on that. Go ahead.
Story and start.
They don't want to work with us. I don't have a problem. You gotta work with us, right? Yeah. And you know,
You explain, I'm going to keep it nasty.
what are the kickers supposed to do? It's not a proper. It doesn't give every position a chance. Either defense back or receiver. This is frustrating. Oh, for sure. If they want to work for it's like, I want to work with you, and then it's like, not scary. It's like, which one do you want? No, it's both.
Oh, yeah. They've just been. You already left, she was having her coffee on the side. I'll wear it.
So that's why I'm going. Yeah, it's actually better.
I got the 615 one. They got 7 in Victoria. Oh yeah. I think it got caught at 8:15 and been 5 minutes late. Really, right? I pulled it in there at 8:35.
I got some info from it. The biggest thing was that I think
Wow, I don't know.
The two individuals that showed up, they were funny coaches. And I felt terrible, I'm like, let me try and see if I can get some money for you guys.
So as you guys are, as I guess we or whatever.
That's a good question.
Doing this new coaching
as a men's flag, so there's a couple of things based on that.
I don't know why they want everyone to get qualified, but if you have, like, suppose you have 2 main coaches and 2 assistant kind of guys. So is it enough to have like 2 super good guys and then those other guys on your wing kind of thing?
This year, that's probably how it's been worked out. But going forward, next year, they will never be back to a all these things, even though the BCCFA has made it mandatory that you're supposed to have your equivalent of recent. My understanding in the way I've been, is that all, is very simple in the sense that now, because of liabilities, et cetera.
But I also.
When something happens, we want to know, did you do
My
this?
editor and Joe Carter.
Okay.
Neither
You
of
guys
them
are good.
have.
Oh, no, you haven't done that? Sorry, really, they went, that's where it is right now.
Yeah.
And
Kevin, can you give your report?
Do you want me to start now?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll make it quick because most of you know me. I'm really shy and don't talk a lot. So the VMFL last year, we struggled a little bit. Obviously, numbers were down across the board, just like everyone else was. Couple of highlights were Spring Flag. So Spring Flag blew up and grew again on us. And we're pretty well, I bet you we're probably, just shooting a number out there, 30 teams away from going to 2 days to host our jamborees. We're that close. So I'm kind of freaking out a bit when declarations are coming in this year because I'm not really sure where I'm going to put everyone. So yeah, Spring Flag was great. Janice is slamming doors on us.
Janice freaking out.
It's because we spent so much money on Spring Flag, she's freaking out. We unfortunately didn't have a Star Bowl last year, but we made up for that this year and had a fantastic Star Bowl last weekend, was it? I'm just losing dates here. And Jean and Janice pulled that off, and those two were awesome this year doing that. A couple other things, we launched our Adam Flag last season, and that was a really big success. I don't know how many teams we had. I can't remember. 12 teams, 14 teams we had. A couple hiccups, obviously, the first season. It took a while to get, to figure out rules, because it sounded like every field had different rules. So we're working on that. As we speak, we have a committee that's working on an Adam Flag rule book. So that should roll out. I think the deadline I gave was next month, April, to get that out. Rob Parmar touched on a little bit about marketing. We rolled that out last year, and he headed that up. And couple of things that Rob was doing. He went to the Lions games and did some promoting, had table and flags and everything. We got flags for every VMFL club, those big tall things, which was really cool, and came out to all the Spring Flag Jamborees and promoted it there. Made a commercial, which was really cool. I don't know where that is though, but Rob can probably let us know. And then, I'm trying to think of any more highlights. Nope, I think we're good. Okay.
BCCFA President.
Okay. 2018 was a really great year for us in the VCFL. We had a lot of success across the board. We had a great Spring Flag season where the VCFL participated in the VMFL, and it was great that we were able to do that. A lot of kids had a blast as well, and it showed that we sent a lot of teams up to Kelowna as well this past year. For tackle, we actually had every single association participated in the provincials at some level. The Adam Falcons lost a heartbreaker game at the 9-man provincials, and the Midget Giants came in second as well. But at 12-man, the VCFL won every tackle level this year. The Pee Wee Falcons, Junior Bantam Knights, the Bantam Bears, and the Midget Kodiaks all won the BC Championships this year. So that was great. It shows that we've got some solid programs in place, good coaching, and that's kind of where we're finding where we're going to get kids coming back to. We found the common denominator. Kids want to play where their friends play, but the really good players will stick with their coaches. And so if you can get the right coaches in place, the kids will be there and their friends will show up, and it seems to be strong. The only other thing we're looking forward to this year is spring tackle. We've been talking about this for a couple of years, and we finally pulled the trigger. We've got enough volunteers in place, and we've got the field allocations, which we didn't know we were going to get from soccer and rugby and all those other sports that seem to come before us. But We're looking at tomorrow being our declaration date, and I believe we're going to have enough teams at both Bantam and Midget to have a really great season this year. So we appreciate the support across the province for that, because we do want to, as Joe mentioned, we do want to we want to see it successful. We want to try something, anything, to get kids to play football differently than they're playing now, whether it's going to be playing in the spring or whether we're going to be looking at different formats for football in the fall. So other than that, it was a great year. Yeah. Thank you. Thanks.
SAFC President.
Thanks, Joe. The SAFC had a pretty good year last year. All of our clubs, 3 out of the 4 clubs were represented at the 9-man championships this past November, which was good instead of the Kelowna takeover. The SAFC this year and has put forward a proposal to change the 9-man provincial tournament, which is now in Lisa's hands and will be brought up at the executive committee. BCFOA and our referee situation in the SIFC, we do now have good communication with our BCFOA people. And last year we went on a very good recruitment spree. Kamloops had 15 kids that wanted to, or I shouldn't say kids, 15 people, because I don't know who they were, sit through a refs clinic, and Vernon had another 15, and that clinic never got done. The first 15 kids that went through a clinic there were never used again. The BCFOA has told me that referees don't want to ref Atom games. So that was a real big issue with this. All the clubs last year signed BCFOA contracts. In there stated how many minimum referees will be provided at a game. I don't think those minimum referee situations were at very many games. So we still have a lot of communication to do and a lot of work to do, because we're providing the BCFOA with these recruits, but if we're not going to use them, just like Valder mentioned, if those kids aren't going to, or people aren't going to get their community hours for their grade 12 or whatnot, those refs are gone. So there's stuff to be worked out there. Moving on. Salmon Arm and Kamloops are adamant that they will have Bantam teams for the fall, and Kelowna is going to do its best. We've already, the president down there, Thomas Burns, has sat down with the high schools. In Kelowna, we have 4 high schools that are all involved in high school football, have high school football teams. So it's a very touchy subject. We're going to promote it to the private high schools. We have a number of them in Kelowna. There's kids out there that should play football and want to play football, and we hope we can reach out to them. We've set at the SIFC June 15th as a declaration, and we are bound and determined that if the rosters, we want to play 9-man, but we will play 6-man if the rosters will allow it. Spring flag it's just a sport that grows and grows and never stops. It's the 2nd or 3rd year now for Vernon and Kamloops to be involved. They're looking at 100 kids in their programs. Kelowna, our only problem isn't growth. Our problem is coaches, and we have to limit the size. We have waiting lists. We're full. From U10 to U18, we're full. That's 380 kids. We still have waiting lists, but if we can't find the coaches, we're not going to load up on flag teams, 12, 14 kids per team. It's just, the coaches don't want it or like it. Then another thing that the SIFC just Friday, I got all the votes in. So any kid playing flag football in the SIFC in 2019, it's mandatory to wear the soft shell helmets. So that's the direction that we're moving in, which is good. And I think that's really about it.
Thank you. Pass that to the North President, please.
We did years ago, because BCFA was getting disinterested in doing the younger levels of tackle ball. And for Adam, Pee-wee, and junior band, we've just taken it over. I train the refs and I coordinate them, and we get young kids in because the BCFA guys are so hit and miss. And so we make sure we always have 2 adults, 2 teenage refs at every game, and it's worked out fine. From that, we just recruit them directly. And a lot of the high school kids come out.
Is there not an issue or a policy that we must use the BCCFA referees for all games? I mean, they're making us sign a contract, so I guess we're locked in.
They have to be certified.
It's an insurance issue.
Yeah. So what that comes down to, Dean, in my discussions with BCCFA and everyone else, is it comes down to an insurance issue. When we had discussed, so in the interior, we had discussed teenagers or parent volunteers as linesmen only in game situations, and it came down to insurance. They don't fall under anyone's insurance. They're not certified BCCFA, so they're not covered under them, and they don't fall under our insurance at BCCFA. So that's why we went the route of the recruitment and the training, and Carrie Anderson came to Kamloops and did that training. Those 15 people were supposed to be used as linesmen, and Adam gave them weren't used. So we're working with our allocators in the interior to ensure that in 2019 we do not have that same issue. Or as most of you know, I'll probably lose my mushrooms again. It's never pretty.
And just so you're clear, it's not BCFOA certified, it's CFOA certification. They have guys who do certification, so your Canadian Football Official Association certified. So I'm a level 4 course conductor, so I can certify guys if I do that. But there's plenty of guys around in the interior and the mainland who can certify guys. You don't have to go through BCFOA, although that's the ideal route to go on. Gary Anderson's the best guy to go through, but yeah, hopefully he can facilitate more training for you.
One other comment about, sorry. One other comment about ensuring officials, if you're going to go in-house, our new policy is a lot more flexible in terms of what our volunteers are doing as well. That's going to be switched as well. So there's lots of flexibility if you want to register them as a volunteer official or volunteer period. So, a lot more flexibility.
Okay.
Just to start off, I'm not actually president, I'm just zone rep, just to clarify. We actually had a really good year. We actually have a full board this year, which was awesome because we were a little short-staffed in the previous years. So it was actually a really good year. We had way less drama this year than previous years as well, so it was really good. And then we had, actually Carrie Anderson came up in the summer, and he did level 1 because we had no refs at all. So he did a level 1 course. We had 21 of our boys certified. They're all 13 to 15. But they actually did really well. And then towards the end of the season, the couple senior high school refs that we did have started to come down and mentor the boys on the field as well. We kind of overstaffed. We had like 6, 7 refs on the field, but it was more for training than anything. But, and then the other thing that Kerry is doing with the boys is every month he sends them a list of questions and scenarios, because we're all young and they're all new refs, so he sends that out every month to keep the refs refreshed, and it's pretty awesome of him. We're still looking at maybe having our tournament again this year, but we're having a little issues getting an exact booking for the field, so when that comes out, then we'll announce the time. Dean in Vernon hosted a tournament for us, so we were able to have our JVs and PVs go down for some games there, and it was awesome. I'd like to do it again, hint, hint. But that was really awesome because we just have Vanderhoof to play, and that's the only teams right now. We did have a gentleman actually just get a hold of us the other day from Smithers, but he just wants to try flag. Which is good. They are 4 hours away, so games might be a little fun to organize because it's a 4-hour drive, but we'll figure something out. That's good.
Thank you. LMFRA, verbal report.
Thank you, BCCFA. We had a great 2018 season. There really isn't much new to report at this point. We're looking forward to 2019, and so far so good.
So for 9-man, I typed my report. You're all adults, so you know how to read. Yay, read it. The only thing is the SIFC put together a committee, and they submitted a formal proposal request for us to look at changing the format of the 9-man championships. They gave us several options, which, as some of you know, that's what I've been looking for, instead of just the complaints, of actually some constructive criticism. So they've submitted a couple of formats for us to look at possibly changing the 9-man in the future. That's something the executive will look at and decide what's best for the betterment of football throughout the whole province. That's it. That's a Valder.
Nothing to add. My report is there.
Flag, Matt.
Am I up next?
Yeah.
All right. I was busy. The flag tournament this year in Kelowna was awesome. Everything was awesome. We made some changes 2 years ago. The first year, the changes that we made really improved it. Last year, we kind of tweaked it a bit, and it was still awesome. So we're going to stay with the same thing going forward. We did have the flag committee had a conversation about a few things that we need to tweak. Number one being the referees, which was a huge bone of contention in a few different areas. So we looked at what we can do there to better track, make sure, and qualify the referees. And then commissioners on the field. One of the issues that we're getting is as the parents get more invested in flag football, they get more excitable. And decide that they need to be there on the sideline with their kids, and we don't really have the space for that. Anybody that's been there has seen that there isn't room to have 9 parents, one for each of the children on the sideline to make sure they're drinking water when they come off or eating their apple slices. So that was an issue this year. So what we're going to look at is more commissioners to take a bit of the load off of having one person trying to run 4 fields, 12 refs, and a bunch of excited parents. We'll just use the word excited today. So, yeah. Because you scare the hell out of everybody. So, yeah. If anybody has any questions or suggestions, fire away, but I think we did good.
Be quick about comment and a question. First of all, from the recent Football Canada meeting I went to, we are, in terms of per capita, we had by far the largest participant numbers in flag, right? I think in raw numbers, only second to Quebec from what I can see. But we have no female teams. Like there's no, every other province, is there any emphasis on female participation in flag?
Well, funny you should mention that. We got a coach at Abbotsford who's looking at putting together an all-female team. I know that at one point Coquitlam had one. Surrey has one. Surrey has 3 this year. So we're looking like we may have a big field to choose from this year. I know we spoke at the provincials in June last year about getting an all-girls team together for July, and it wasn't feasible schedule-wise. But this year we've got a lot of people focused in that direction, and I think it's phenomenal. And Dean, were you saying that you guys have a girls team out there too?
Last year we had 2. This year, unfortunately, they so we have one at U12, but we've got at least 30 girls playing co-ed.
Excellent, yeah. I think you see a lot of them out there playing with the guys, but it'd be nice to get a couple, because, correct me if I'm wrong, there's a national representation for BC for girls. U16 and U18. So, I mean, there you go, guys. That's a huge incentive to get out there and recruit an all-girls team.
Girls teams on what team? U10, 12, and 14.
Dean, what was yours?
U12? Yeah, see, I think we're looking at a U16 team in Abbotsford. So, yeah, and yeah, for U18, I can work on that too. So. Perfect. Yeah, and now where are the nationals this year?
Saskatoon, Saskatoon. Everyone wants to be Saskatoon.
Yeah. The pterodactyls, mosquitoes in Saskatoon at that time of year. All right, we're moving on. Who's next, Joe?
Any questions for the flag coordinator?
Any questions for flag?
Good. Stonewall? No report for Stonewall?
No report.
Okay, at this point in time, the president and the vice president have resigned. We're at number 10.
Should we all go home?
No. No.
We're gonna make this short and sweet. In accordance with our Constitution, nominations have to be submitted in writing and accepted in writing prior to this meeting. There are no nominations from the floor. That's in our Constitution. That being said, just there a few moments.
Yeah, for Joe, there was 4 for Joe and nobody else, so.
Yeah.
You can't
No, well,
escape.
no, I'm not worried about president right now, vice president. We start at the bottom and we go up. So your zone representatives are all done within your own zone. Flagman coordinator, 9-man coordinator, treasurer and secretary are all appointed positions by the president. That takes us up to the vice president. There were 2 nominations for vice president, Derek LaSalle and Valder Belgrade. And Derek, you got 2 minutes. Why should we vote for you?
You should. I'm declining my nomination.
You decline now?
Yes.
Valder, do you accept yours?
I did already. Yeah.
You did in written? Perfect. So Valder is in by acclamation. Yay, Valder! And as far as president goes, there is only 1 nomination, which is Joe. Joe, in the last several years, has said he doesn't want to be president anymore, but nobody ever nominates anyone else, so we keep Joe around. You're in by acclamation. Thanks, Joe.
Hey, Joe.
Going forward, I'd really like all of the membership to look within themselves, because it doesn't have to be a president of an association that takes over. In 2021, there will be a new president again at that time, because the reason I keep asking is that it's really important that we get a new voice up here, and again, change is important to our organization, and I've been around, as I said, when we first started, or when I got on board, it was, I went for lunch, and then I came back as president, and there was, we had 1 person and no money, and now we've got a plethora of people that are doing a fantastic job. So it's an easier job, especially when you don't have to be a president now and wear several or 14 different hats. But it's also taking the things and dealing with all of our groups and adjusting it to go forward. And again, going into another decade, you should be trying to encourage somebody in your own organization to step forward for the position. And as I've said in the past, if another name comes forward, I'm not going to run against them. I don't want to defeat the system that I'm trying to do, is to encourage people to come in. And obviously, sometimes it's the devil that you know versus someone you don't know. And I think that we've really done a really good job as a group applying ourselves to the number of issues that we have to look at moving forward and growing from where we were to where we are. But I do honestly believe that we need now somebody else to take over the reins and move the group forward with new vision, etc., that they need. And I think that's extremely important. And hopefully, in this process of the next 2 years, you'll either talk about it yourselves or come in contact with someone that you think would be an excellent person to be in this job and move the football community forward. And thank you. Pardon?
The car, and so I think where the intimidation comes in is a lot of people look at you and you do a lot, but they don't know what you do. So if you have someone in your club or you yourself are willing to step into the role, get in contact with Joe. We've got 2 years for on-the-job training. So when he orders the medals, he can say, hey, Carrie, you've got, you need to contact this person by the end of the month to order this many medals. So he can do on-the-job training with whoever is going to take that role on instead of him doing it. And then it's not as intimidating coming in 2 years from now when we have another election.
And as she pointed out, I'm more than willing to give you as much information I can because, again, we try to be transparent. There are no secrets. This is some black op organization out there. Okay, so now that we've done that, and I know that just to make sure that you know this, Valder has another appointment somewhere and he has to leave at 1:30 and we have someone else that has to leave, so we wanted to go to that point. Now, in the next item here we got is... Yep.
Thank you all very much.
And, thanks, Valder. Thank you, Elder. Now, our working rule changes. There's one item that had to be brought up, and for everybody's attention, is that we had a few issues with the law firm that was filing our papers, etc. BCCFA has taken that back over. Under the working rule and changes, we had to go through several things that we'd already previously passed. Again, they had all been passed. We had to make sure it was all done, and that was in our January meeting? January 14th. And therefore, in those minutes, there's a statement in there that we've previously ratified information that has already been passed so that we could update everything at the ministry and have everything online correctly. So, and that was, again, at fault of an organization that didn't do all of the things that we thought they would do. So that would be any changes or processes in that problem. The BCCFA update, at this point in time, I'm just going to quickly go over. We did have, I mentioned to you in the March minutes, we had another proposal that came forward about 9-man football. And what happens because of it's a championship, the executive board makes the decision on that. So if people have information, Lisa's already pointed out, it goes to the board through your zone rep or your president that sits at the table. It comes forward to here, and then what happens is that if you want to change or anything, then it's dealt with at the board level. So if they're looking for a date change or a system change in that, it has to be there. If there's any rule changes for example, these would be directly at 9-man football, the rule changes have to go here, but you'd have to explain why this is important for the rest of the province. And the difficulty that some people look at, and again, this may be my perception, is that when I look at something, the focus is how is this better helping the kids playing the game? I have great difficulty when someone comes up to me and starts asking about a change for some whining coach. Okay, because it's not about the coach, it's about the players, and the coach is the byproduct of how they participate in the event. Now, if you want a venue change for anything, just like the process goes, just let everybody know that you have to send in an application to the board for a venue change. But you have to explain, what you're going to offer. You say, well, we just want to change. Well, how's it going to impact the rest of the province? What are the costs? What are the BCCFA costs going to incur? What's going to be the dynamics for this? So you've given us a little bit more information. When we went through that with the flag, we had Kamloops and Kelowna both put in substantial bid applications and gave us a lot of information so that the board could sit down and go through all the material to then make a decision on what's the best thing for everybody. Whether it's field conditions, whether it's the venue, whether it's referees, the volunteers, etc. All of that comes into play when you're trying to do a presentation versus saying, oh, we just want the venue changed. Well, you have to give us a little more than that because we don't know. We're not going to go through the research for you. We just don't have the time or the energy. And when you come in and say, okay, here's all the things that you need to know. This is why we want this done. A, B, C, D, E. The board looks at it and then they determine it. And, you know, we can all give our 2 cents, but just again, let you know, the president doesn't have a vote. Okay? And so as a result of that, I can pontificate on a whole lot of things, but, you know, when it comes down to it, there's only specific voting members. All right, so that takes care of sort of our BCCFA update on that. If you have any other information or you want to do anything, again, changes would go for 2020, not 2019. It's just too short to have everybody have an opportunity to do something. So you're saying, okay, and that's what I always say, it'll be for the next year. Can't happen this year. Why? Because we have to get all that information out. Everybody has to take a look at it, evaluate it, and go forward. And that's not a problem. You know, and change is always good.
With the exception of flag, which change would take place in 2021 because we voted on the bid packages to be effective for 2019 and 2020.
Correct.
Where is this information? Where is the application? Like, I went through your entire handbook, through the bylaws, through the Constitution, looking for how you make those decisions, what dates those decisions are made by. Where is that for the public knowledge to find that information?
In the BCCFA handbook, it states that the BCCFA executive will determine the format and dates of the championships in the spring of each year. Unfortunately, the problem that I discovered yesterday is that our website is not up to date. Our website has the 2016 handbook on it. There is a 2018 handbook. So that was a problem. I do have a copy here of it. And which I discovered yesterday, actually, was that. And then as far as an application, there is no application.
Right, so how does a football club know that that is the process in which you go through? Because it's not advertised.
If a football club wanted to do something like that, the correct route would be to take it to their zone rep. And their zone rep, who sits on the board, would have that information or put in a bid package. Write up a proposal. Whether
So
it's
Kamloops does this every year?
No, Kamloops submitted a proposal for the flag championships last year.
I'm not worried about flag.
No, but that's what I'm saying, is they did it for the flag last year. And we sat down and looked at Kamloops versus the Kelowna bid. As far as 9-man goes, and same as 12-man, it is where it is until we're given information or opportunity to hold it somewhere else. We don't, personally, I don't have the time to go around and look at all the different venues and everything else and go, I think it'll be here this year, or there this year, or here this year.
And we're not asking you to.
No, so I'm just saying that it's held in Kamloops until, same as flag was held in Kelowna and is still being held in Kelowna, until somebody else steps out of the woodwork and says, hey, we'd like to do it.
And who is the committee that sits and looks at those bids?
The executive committee.
The full executive,
The
including
full executive
zone?
committee.
Including zone?
Yep.
Yes.
And what is the date in which those have to be?
Well, usually, as I mentioned, it usually is the year before. Yeah.
Well, what does the handbook say? So that we can follow.
It says that we make the decision of the dates of the championships in the spring.
Yeah, the
So,
AGM.
if you want to hold it for 2020, I would think that the bid would need to be in by early fall.
We gave a cutoff usually in, the latest would be October, November, when the two groups are vying for it. They made a presentation. Then we said, okay, you'd have to have your bids into us by this point in time in order for the executive, and then get the information out to everybody so that they can budget for the changes.
So I think that's what she's after, is can we have it sit somewhere, maybe on the website, saying any bid processes for that to be
Exactly.
by October of the previous year. That's
yeah,
what you're asking. That's all you're asking, right?
Yep.
It doesn't have to have, say, October 15th, let's say October,
Yeah, right.
right? That's what you're
Just
asking, right?
any
Yeah.
form of communication that actually tells us what the process is, because there is nothing on there.
Yeah.
Absolutely nothing. And now I went straight through that handbook, and it's not even a book we're still looking at. And there's nowhere else to get it.
Yeah, I understand that. And
How about to change the format of
I need a
BC's
proposal in writing.
by when and to who and
by October
by October, so.
for 2019.
We have to change the format
20.
a year in advance?
Yeah, because we can't change.
There's a lot of planning that goes into stuff.
You can't change, the problem becomes is that you have to notify everybody in the province. It's not the organization that wants to do it. Usually we've had some communication saying, hey, look, we think this is going to happen, okay? What do we need to do that? Okay, you have to have this information in by this time, trying to facilitate all our membership, because again, other people may want to do it as well. But if yours comes in, and as an example, you said, okay, we had this, here's all the information is, because in order to make a decision, it has to go out far enough in advance so every club can determine how they're going to adjust their fees, what the costs are going to be, what the implications of travel are. It's a huge process. Because again, just like you heard today, and I'll use that as an example, when Football Canada comes up and asks us for this, all of a sudden clubs are being faced with a $35 issue that they didn't budget for. Just imagine what it could be for a $3,000 or $4,000 budget issue, and they're going to look at us and go, why didn't you let us know a year in advance? Why didn't you deal with this? And as the process comes, is that when we were working with the two flag groups, they indicated this. We were dealing with them directly on getting as much information as the board could in order to facilitate a positive decision. And we've heard that now another group is going to be presenting information. They want some changes. If this is coming in, the more information you can give us, the easier it is to have the people make a decision on what the direction of football is going to be. Because that is a dramatic change if you're changing venues. But there also has to be a caveat in there. It's not a one-year deal. It's got to be, a 2 or 3 year deal, because again, the process of trying to get that organized, and just as a point, we'll say it becomes successful, well, you can't go back to Kamloops or any other group and say, get all your people organized because we're coming back next year. They'd tell you, it ain't happening. And that became the reason why we decided on a 3-year contract, or a 2-year contract with Flag, is you got to guarantee it, because to make that move for the volunteers and everybody else, because it's a big project. So hopefully, and yeah, we're learning in the process to make sure we get as much information as possible. But again, the individuals that want to change through the reps to the board, so then we can say, okay, here's your dialogue. You need to add more of this information so that we can flesh it out a little bit better. And unfortunately, yeah, we didn't have it there. We'll put a date in our rule book that says all bids must be in by this time 1 year, in the previous year.
Of the bid, are you going to list what BCCFA is responsible for and what the proposed association is, or zone is responsible for?
Well, according to
your
our
email.
Yeah, I was trying to flesh it out and give you as much as possible.
I just want to make this very clear so that I know what we have to come up with.
Go ahead.
You state that we need to, among other things, provide for what we're going to provide for BCCFA. Field numbers for volunteers working the event, providing food for volunteers, referees for the event, blah, blah, blah. So, just so I have this clear, the association that puts the bid in, so we'll just call it Kamloops now because they are the ones that host it. So they pay for all the food for the volunteers and everything else, yet in your flag, BCCFA pays for that.
Right.
So is it expected of the zone that would like to host it to incur those costs?
So this, I can actually, I'll speak to that, because I'm the one that set up the original contract with Kamloops. At Flag Championships, BCCFA runs that championship. We are the volunteers, we are the field commissioners, we are all of that. So we pay for food and everything else, we get the revenue from it. At the 9-man championships, and at the 12-man, sorry, I'll go to 12-man, we do everything for that as well. The 9-man championships, at this point, is the only championship that we get to sit back and watch games, because Kamloops runs the gate, they get all of the volunteers, they pay food for volunteers, they pay for the fields. The only thing we pay for 9-man is our expenses to get there and for the referees. That's what we pay for. And in return, Kamloops gets the gate fees and the 50/50. 2 years ago, Kamloops made off of that event $329. This year, Kamloops made $459, taking into account that the city of Kamloops gave them a $500 grant for hosting a provincial championship. It doesn't make you money.
No.
At all. And Kamloops does all of the work.
Well, for them, they get to host it there.
But they get to host it.
Right, Kamloops does, yeah.
That's what you want, right?
Yeah, it's not.
If it's, you wanna showcase your place, then it is worth it, it's not about.
But, yeah, but no, but the associations have to come up with that money, right? So, we got 9 organizations, I don't think all those clubs have that financial capability for 9 men. There's no way.
So.
Since we're talking about 9 men,
Yeah.
can I put a request in for the championship that the BCCFA reserves hotels, because you know that there's teams going up there to a block, so at the end of the year, right 2 weeks beforehand, we're not looking for hotels for the teams to go up there. Is that possible?
I did that 1 year, and I blocked in 3 different hotels at 3 different price points. I blocked out hotel rooms, and I sent it out to all of the clubs that had been, that I got the rosters in, and not one person stayed there.
The Sandman is our preferred hotel because they give us a better rate. When I've asked them to block out that, they go, well, if you don't book by this time, you're paying for all the rooms. So we just can't afford it. We recommend it and we can put it out there, and they try to, but it's just, an issue of, it's different in flag because I know exactly how many rooms that we need, and we book them, and then they say, okay, it's a different issue. Unfortunately, we can recommend where people go, and I'm meeting with somebody at a hotel this week coming up, and I will ask them if they can do something like that for us, and I'll see where it goes to put it out to the membership. Okay, so the locker room. Here's a question about the locker room. It's in this section on the update here before we get to constitutional changes. Again, I'll just let you know, the last time I went in the locker room was forever ago to check and see whether they had me updated as a level 4 coach. I have no idea. I haven't been there for a number of years, so I have no idea about it. You said that we have a problem?
I'm just gonna speak for my own association. Years ago, there was a whole bunch of our coaches that took the safe contacts, still not updated in the locker room. I've emailed Kyla several times about it. I know it's not her responsibility, it's just she's the person that I've been contacting. Last year, we had a bunch of coaches take it again, still not updated. The MED course that was taken 2 weeks ago, still not updated. I'm keeping my own spreadsheet because I know when I paid for my coaches to take those courses. But if the locker room isn't going to be updated, what are we paying them for? Because this is getting ridiculous. And I'm not going to take their word for it that the coaches physically took it. I know I probably should take it, but unless I physically have paid them for it and it's not in the locker room, I'm not taking their word for it. So now I have coaches that are pissed off because they have to go and take these courses that are mandated because it's not in their locker room and I can't find it anymore.
I know, my son's
Frank?
information got lost 5 years in a row, so we had big issues finding it. Lots of times, at least the president then knew that he had taken it, so.
Frank?
So anything pre-2016, we tried to catch up. That was a former PSO who ran courses for years and years and never registered, took your money and never registered anything. So we tried to clean up that mess. We even went individually to find out who some of these people were. They weren't affiliated with anyone. So I can say for 98% of the people pre-2016, we cleaned it up. 98%, not 100. Since then, what I've found that, I can't speak about making headway or making ethical decisions, but safe contact, we have a record of it. And BCPFA has a record of it. The time lapse between when you take the course, complete the course, and get into the locker room, we have no control over that. That's a clerk somewhere in Ottawa entering them in. So we have no control over when they get in the locker room. However, if there's any questions at all, taking the safe contact between Kayla and Duncan particularly, people have records. Making up the online courses, that they should be registered instantaneously. That's what I understood. As soon as you complete it, that should be in your locker room. Should be. If it's not apparently, I'm going to look into that.
So I have a bunch of coaches pre-2016.
Okay.
So should I be sending that list to Duncan with the dates that they've taken it?
Please.
Because I got about 20 coaches that
Please.
currently.
And again, that was a mess that it took us, and Joe was part of that. And we went, it was a mess.
The second part of that, too, is that Frank may be able to explain this because we've talked about this at length. There are still instructors that the BCCFA nor the BCPFA recognize. Football Canada doesn't recognize them. If they've taken a course from one of the instructors we do not recognize, they have not taken the course, but they paid their money, that's just too bad, so sad. We've told everybody we don't recognize certain people because they owe Football Canada. Football Canada will not certify them or recognize them, but some people are still doing that, and then they're yelling and complaining about something that has nothing to do with us.
Sanction course or any course that we put on, you're free. It's recognized, just to be clear.
Yes. And that came from Football Canada due to the problem they had with previous instructors that owe them a tremendous amount of money because they collected the money and didn't pay. So.
Email him at technicaldirector@bcpfa.com.
Thank you.
Email him.
Okay, that brings us up to constitutional changes. I don't believe we have any. And just to let you know, if you want something changed in the Constitution, you have to send it in writing because we have to send it out to the membership 30 days in advance to make sure that everybody's got it. And then at the AGM, the membership votes on that, and only the people at the AGM can vote. And it has to pass by, under the new rules. Thank you. 2/3 majority. Okay, brings us up to number 14, 2019 championship dates. The 12-man championship is in Langley, Sunday, December 1st. I don't know.
It shouldn't say Langley.
That's what's
That's not the language, I guess, will it be?
Well, you should just
Old
know.
Town, not here? Coquitlam?
Let's change that to Coquitlam.
Just Coquitlam, please.
Sorry, we're-
That's a typo. Yeah. The 9-man championships in Kamloops, Saturday, November 16th and Sunday, November 17th. The flag championships are in Kelowna, June 7th, 8th, and 9th. Game times to be announced. Player eligibility, member in good standing, proof of primary insurance. Please note the flag jersey regulations. Must have a number on the back. Must have a name or club association on the front. We've eliminated the BCCFA logo on all jerseys because that would be an extra cost to all our members, and we didn't figure that we should be concerned about that, an extra cost coming in. I believe our membership has put in, our partner has put in on their website, they've got packages out there for jerseys and shorts and equipment if you need equipment.
Anything down here about flags or balls?
Wilson balls were voted.
The flags, you have to buy, all flags have to go through Kahuna. That's the rule. And the reason why is that because the BCCFA doesn't want to have to check every single flag that comes through. If we have a
one supplier and everybody buys their flags from the one supplier, then we know they're all the same and correct length, okay? And the correct width. Because I know, just to give you an example, when we first started and I found out, and I know it was the kids, that the coaches were cutting 1.5 inches off, they wanted an advantage. I'm going, okay, one supplier? Yes.
Can you just clarify once again, you said the front has to have the association logo?
No, I said name, club, it has to have either your club logo across the front or the team name. It has to have some identifying factor for who the kid is, so that if there is an issue, we know who to target.
Or whatever design if a club wants to have something.
You could, yeah, whatever you want. You can, some people want to do subliminal, that doesn't matter. It just has to have, make sure it has the number on the back and an identifying factor on the front for us.
Identifying factor, the association name on the back.
You can do that. The number has to be clear for our VPN broadcast, which is incredibly important at this point in time, just to let you know, because I think this is fantastic for community football as a whole, because the numbers of the people who were there, and I'm only dealing with the flag, the 12 and 9-man championship, we had over, which includes the people that were at the event, 25,000 viewers saw community football at those 3 events last year. That doesn't include all the people that were at the games or anything. So when they look at our events, we had 25,000 people look at it. That's a tremendous, bonus for all of us. And the fact that we're doing a real positive thing for all those kids.
Please let your clubs know, especially in the provincials, to have 2 sets of jerseys for your flag teams, because the home team, the scheduled home team, picks their jersey color. We had a couple incidents last year where we were trying to find pennies or matching colored t-shirts for teams that only came up with 1 set of jerseys. They have to have 2, because if both teams have black, the visiting team has to change their shirt.
And we will not allow skins in shirts. Okay. Yes.
In regards to the flags, do they have to say BCCFA on the flags? I know there was that mandated a few years ago, and then when Big Kahuna took over, they missed putting the lettering on there. We still have a number of those.
We requested that to come from Big Kahuna, that they have that. That was their fault last year, so we had to allow that. Obviously, the issue is that as I don't know how to say no, that you can't use those. Ultimately, I know clubs have them, so it just becomes an issue of as we go forward, they'll all ended up being replaced. The original aspect was for each of the clubs, when we first started, was to make sure the kids took the flags home with them, because they paid for them. The club kept the balls because the kids paid for the balls too, but the club got a bonus. So they would always be recycled every year. They get new flags. Yep.
Is there a reason the 9-man provincials like 3 weeks earlier than the 12-man?
Yep. No, he asked me if there was a reason. I said, yeah, there was. I was waiting.
What is it?
Weather.
Championships now 2 weeks later than we used to. Part of the reasoning for the date of the 9-man is the zones that are involved in 9-man. Now there's really only 2 zones that are affected by weather. There used to be 3, where the one zone hasn't even actually played football since mid-October because of weather. So it's held the weekend before Grey Cup weekend, in the aspect that most zones are done a season, but they haven't been off the field so long that they're gonna get hurt.
Yeah, it's weather that controls it.
Just as the 12-man goes 2 weeks later, then, because our season just stops right then, and then the 12-man guys sit at home and do nothing but practice for 3 weeks, and then they go. I just wonder.
Just Wilson balls this year?
Yeah, Wilson balls are, Wilson is a sanctioned ball by the BCCFA. The reason for that is that unfortunately Spalding stopped making balls, and as a result we switched. The 2 balls that were looked at were Wilson and Bodden. Bodden is, in and everybody else's might not a really good ball, so we went with Wilson because that used to be the ball of the BC community football in the early days. Basically, when I first came on board, they used Wilson. And it's the composite ball is the ball that we use, not leather, and the reason why is that that would be a huge cost for a lot of groups if we went to leather.
Guaranteed something to show up with both.
Okay.
If coaches wanted to use the leather ball, Wilson ball, are they allowed to, or is it only the composite?
Only
ball?
composite.
Can I get that in writing, please?
It's in page 3 of the handbook.
2016 or 2018?
Is that for all levels?
Yep. They make a ball for every single level. And that's the other thing that we had to go with regards to that as well. The composite. Okay, at that point in time, we're down to eligibility, club eligibility, member in good standing, all fees paid, including membership to Football Canada, BCPFA, and BCCFA via online. And that becomes part of the issue. Just one thing again on proof of primary insurance. The BCCFA, if we were asked the question of, can kids from other countries play football? As long as they pay all their fees, they have to have a primary proof of insurance, which is equivalent to BC Medical. Most of them will. If they provide that, they're eligible to play.
You have a question?
I don't have.
Sure, 2 of them.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
That's okay. Shelley, I know we talked about this, but with the change on how the fees are being collected this year for Football Canada, there is an issue in eSports Desk where when you register a player, you can actually select cash or check or any form of payment to pay your BCCFA, BCPFA, and Football Canada, which means the money is not going directly to those associations. When will that be rectified, and how will you collect money from clubs that have not paid that with a credit card?
I talked to Harvey about it, and he was supposed to correct it.
Okay, it's still not fixed.
So fixed. Can you talk to them again, please? Okay.
Can you break down the fees? BCCFA, we pay $20. What is that for?
It's for in coaching development, $10 membership fee. And BCPFA is $23.
Yeah, does that, my parents asked. Sorry, the $10 was what? An application fee?
No, the $10 is the BCCFA annual membership fee, and $10 is coaching development fee.
Okay.
And BCPFA, $13 is our annual membership, and $10 is insurance. And Football Canada is a straight 15.
Yeah, and that's just the membership fee?
Yeah, correct.
So, under those membership fees, BCCFA supplies championships. What else comes under that
Coaching
membership?
development, we pay for.
Coaching development, but now that's only coaching development and safe contact. It doesn't
Safe
include
contact,
anything.
with a comp.
Sorry?
Into the comp and like safe contact, we
Okay.
we host those clinics and then we just get invoiced.
Okay, and then membership fees is just fees goes into the pot. The insurance, that is through BCPFA.
Yes.
Okay. And Football Canada is just membership,
Yes.
whatever.
Yeah, you're part of Football Canada.
Well, actually, they have their website allows the members that could go in. There's coaching stuff. There's all kinds of information that's in there. And just that also when they pay their provincial fees is that they're now eligible for all the camps that the BCPFA puts on for development, etc. Because without that, they're not a member, therefore they can't go. And that's important, and that's how we've extended it out there.
PFA.
That's right.
Is that?
And again, in order to get to the BCPFA, you have to be a member of the BCCFA.
So the high schools belong to BCCFA?
No.
No. Right, so then how do they get to go to those camps?
Okay, I can explain that very carefully.
I pay my son's fees. January 1st, I go online and I pay the $11 for Football Canada. I pay the $23 for BCPFA and I pay the $20 for BCCFA every January 1st since he started playing high school, so that my son is eligible to play in elite teams and represent BC.
Okay.
So an individual member can join.
For a lot of individuals that I can deal with, and again, that they can become members because they play flag football. And if they play flag football, they join the BCCFA. They come through an organization because they're part of an organization in order to get on that team to get into the BCCFA. Therefore, we have high school coaches coaching high school kids that belong to a community association that play in the BCCFA, or they play in their leagues and they play in the championships. We have community coaches coaching high school kids and community kids on the same team in flag football, and they get there. The BC Provincial Association, registers kids and they pay their BCCFA fees. So everybody is a member of the BCCFA in order to get to the next level, because I have gone over this time and time again with the Provincial Association, and Frank will verify it, is that you have to be a member in order to go. If you're not a member, you cannot participate in any of those things, because people who aren't members of the Community Association can't be a member of the Provincial Association, can't be a member of Football Canada. And junior as well.
So, does that make total looking? So what you're saying here, Frank, correct me if I'm wrong, is you don't have to be eligible for your events, you don't have to play community football, but you just gotta pay your fees.
Well, see, this is what I'm kind of surprised what Cindy just said. Like, is your kid playing flag?
No.
It's
It's so that he can be eligible for representing BC, whether he makes the team or not.
Okay, that's kind of skirting the system, that wasn't the intention. Just so you know how we cover people that are not members. 90, I'm gonna say 96, 98%, whatever, almost everybody has played flag. Right? So you pay your membership fee, you're in, right? Like
the island, nobody plays flag.
Okay, in that case, what happens is they become registrants of the BCCFA directly. They become members of the BCCFA. We pay the BCCFA. If they don't show up in our system anywhere and they're under 18, they become a member of the BCCFA.
So if they have ever played community football on the island, I'm only referring to the island.
Yes.
If they've played at any time from Adam to say JB, and then they go to high school.
This year,
or next year, let's just say, they're finished with JB, they go to high school.
Right.
They are no longer part of BCCFA because we are not paying their dues through community football.
Correct.
Unless they.
Just a second, let me get it straight. They then can pay their fees to BCPFA, and that automatically puts them into BCCFA. Because they've already played in community at some point in their life.
It's supposed to be the calendar year.
Okay, so kid's in grade 10, he has not played community football for a year or two.
Exactly.
He goes to play for Team BC or whatever team is it. I have not seen a single kid be told, sorry.
We're not going to stop anyone from playing. We're not going to stop. We're not going to give the opportunity not to play. So once we get them registered with BCPFA and BCCFA, they get a check from us for whatever. It's not that money. Their dues, their fees are more than a current member, marginally. They're not huge.
So like instead of 43, it's like 50.
It's marginal.
Okay.
Because we're not going to prevent a kid from trying out. It's not their fault that high school is not part of our association.
Right.
Okay, so, didn't answer my question, no disrespect, Frank.
Don't remember the question.
I know, because it never got answered. So here's the concern, everyone, 99% of the people in this room is, I think, excuse me, sorry, I want everyone to hear this. I think everyone is just completely sick and tired and fed up with high school kids being able to play for your elite teams, and they haven't even stepped a foot on community football. And I don't, and once again, no disrespect, because I love you like a brother, I don't want to hear any more crap about they pay this, they pay that. They're community or they're not. And if high school wants to do this, high school better get off their goddamn ass and start paying.
Okay.
Because everyone's sick and tired of it.
And to expand on that a bit more too, is that when we go to look at these things, and there's all these high school coaches that are coaching these teams, but we've got a plethora of community coaches to choose from.
Okay, I would answer that, and that's something that's being my block. Number one, anyone who's coaching high school, they're coaching flag. You cannot coach on these teams unless you're a member of community football, or junior football, okay? Or UBC, excuse me. So you need to be involved and be a member somewhere down the line. All our coaches are better that way, number one. Number two, we had a call out for coaching applications this year, and we got zero response. It was advertised through websites.
Where? I'm on Everything Football, and I did
Facebook and our website.
I'm sorry, you can't put this stuff out on social media because social media is optional. This has to go directly via email through the zone presidents to the club presidents. I can't be, my job can't be to watch social media to see if there's a Football Canada BC,
Especially when
BC tryout.
It doesn't show up unless you've been on it too, right?
But
Like,
we've done
you
this,
don't
so
see it.
we did this for, I would say 3 months, 4 months, we kept on shooting it out there. Okay, and your point taken,
It has to be on the internet, not just on Facebook.
We'll make a note as an improvement. Does that answer the question? Well, if we make the improvement, we'll be able, because we're not perfect. No, we can't, no, we're not. Anyway, so that's an email blast is basically what you want. The other thing I mentioned when I was talking about earlier, kids aren't coming out, like it's mainly high school kids, like community kids aren't coming out, and I don't understand why. We try to emphasize the fact that we want community kids. I'll match up any community, you know what I'm saying, match up community kids with high school kids. The talent's equal. It truly is equal, and I don't understand why there's not more community kids coming up.
Because word of mouth is killing it. It's absolutely killing it, because these community kids are going, well, why the hell am I gonna do it? Like, they've got all the Terry Fox and the Tweetsmeer, and they got all those kids, so I'm not trying out for that.
Why waste your money on a tryout?
It's word of mouth. I'm not joking, Frank, word of mouth is killing it right now. Absolutely.
And the coaches, their coaches at community aren't backing it.
Right.
Because, okay, they come and coach a flag team for 5 weeks, right? That's all they're invested in community football. So why would a community coach that's completely invested in community football promote something that's going to be primarily high school players? And I hear, what I hear from the kids out in Abbotsford, and these are the high school and the community players, right? Or that don't bother, the team's already picked.
The other issue, I'm sorry to say,
No, I know, that's exactly what I hear, right?
but the other issue is that when you have high school coaches coaching these things, that sure, maybe they coached flag, but what do they do to those tackle players? Is they recruit them to come and play for their high school. And don't tell me it doesn't happen.
I can't speak to that.
It's a goal that they do on the outside.
And again, just because we're at the end, whoever applies for the coaching staff, at the end, the executive vets, whoever's on the short list to be selected, and we have to make sure that we try to avoid exactly what you're talking about. We're looking for stand-up guys, is what we're looking for, and women.
Just to add that thing from the island again, like it's not just a $50 tryout, it's like a $500 tryout to come from the island. And I have an older son who did a few of those, and we just stopped because he saw no tryout time. Like, it isn't as straightforward as you think as a $50 tryout, because I think we'd all be coming, but it is a lot of extra. And to not be seen or heard as a community player, if it's all high school, it's what it feels like, they stop coming.
No, fair enough. Year one, we went around the province and did it, and it was incredibly expensive, and our results were brutal.
I think you'd have more if they felt it was more fair.
Say again?
You would have more community kids coming from the island, because we do it all the time, we did it the last 3 weekends. If they felt it was more fair, but the word gets out that it's already handpicked, you're just there to fill the rosters, to fill the seats. And that's what it kind of came across as. I mean, we haven't done it for a couple of years with my other son, but that's kind of the word up there, so that's why.
And I will assure you, on my word right now, that is not the truth. Perception is reality, don't get
Well,
me
I've
wrong.
been
It's
there.
not-
I've sat on the stands and watched that though, like over the years with my older son. We came over quite a few times and it felt, what it looked like, it sure looked that way, because they didn't get to play, you didn't play for the first quarter of one game. When you get on the field.
When a coach goes to a player, right, and says, I want you to come play for me, but then doesn't pick, like they go and recruit players to come that don't have to come to the tryouts, and they don't pick the kids that come to the tryouts and pay the $50, that spreads like wildfire in the schools and the community clubs.
But that is such a small percent. The reason they can't come to, they're out of town, they're injured, whatever the case might be, right? For that trust. And that's, I'm not gonna say it doesn't happen, but if you get a talent, whether it be community or high school, a kid, talented kid, you want them to at least come to the second camp.
Yeah, but
You still take a $50?
It's mandatory.
It's
First-
mandatory, it's like no exceptions, you have to be there for the open trial, like.
Okay, but that's been said before, but the players that are recruited, that might come to any of the, there's kids out there saying that they don't even have to pay the fees.
You know, Matt, no, that's not true.
But that's not true. No, I can defend that because I monitor that, and like that is part of my job, and I'm very strict. Like if you have to pay your fees, and you come in like everybody else, you have to do that. So,
Forget he said it, Frank, you asked why community players aren't coming up. I'm telling you what I'm hearing, right? I'm not trying to attack you. I'm telling you what I hear.
Appreciate that.
So, I mean, those are things, that's perception, and that's why community players aren't wanting to play.
And the BCPFA AGM is on March 24th.
Come on.
Sorry, I'm going to interject here at one point because and in the previous administration, those were the same things that were out there, and they were in fact true. And I know because it was an elite group of guys that were always handpicked, that went to a specific group, that did this, and I fought against that for a number of years, that to keep opening up the door and making sure it was broader and broader and broader. Unfortunately, when the new group has come in and tried to make it as equitable as possible, that all those lingering things are still there. And I hear them all the time too, when in fact, I'm going, well, I know that's not true, I know this is not true, I know that's not true, and, because I've actually seen the people, talked to the people, do the stuff, and unfortunately, we have to do, as a group, in my mind, a better job coaching our kids to let them go and participate and let somebody make the choice. And I know, I understand what's gone on before, I know that's somewhat difficult, but I can't tell you how many kids that I coach and saying, well, my coach told me not to go because I wasn't good enough. I said, your coach isn't the guy that's making the choice. Go and let this person see you because you may be what they need. You may not be what they need. They're gonna tell you how to improve yourself. But I think it's, we as a community group have to stop a lot of the misinformation, which includes all that stuff on concussions and everything else. We can't just be victims of it and say, hey, we have to go out there and openly push hard so that things have the perception of being changed, and giving Frank a lot of information, and you can email Frank and you can call Frank and get the information there saying, hey, how do we correct this? What is the step? If it's an issue of, maybe the BCCFA and the BCPFA have to look at saying, how do we best facilitate the island and have a tryout on the island and go there for these groups to manifest that. And if it's a cost issue, and again, if it's going to help our membership, maybe we have to take a look at that as the BCCFA group. I had one, I had two.
I don't want to say anything about whether teams are picked or not picked prior to. What I can say specifically though is I've been on my board with Northland Youth Football for 8 years now, going on 9. I have never received a package for a U16 team, a U18 team, Zone Bowl, Big Kahuna Bowl, now that type of thing. It's always put onto parents to go out and find this. And I think it would really benefit BC as a whole if you guys put together a package that you could send out to the zone reps. The zone reps would then filter it down to each association that could then put it out to the eligible players. And in that information, you would have when the ID camps are, the tryouts, which ones are mandatory, which ones you can skip over if you're not going to be able to be there, who the coaches are, what the practice times are like, you know, what kind of commitment it is, because there's a lot of kids that probably don't look at this as seriously as they should because they don't know how it's going to interfere with flag or spring tackle or rugby or elite baseball, that type of thing. And put together a package where you can actually see what this program is from start to finish, what the benefits are, examples of players that have gone through and had success with this. I think that would be a huge benefit to grow these things. I don't think that would be a very difficult thing to do. One of you said, sorry, I can't remember which one, but not everybody's on Facebook, not everybody's on social media. I get asked by parents to just send them things. I'm basically their secretary for camps. If I miss one, it's on me that the kid didn't get the opportunity. The Big Kahuna Bowl here, my son gets a text from a parent in Cloverdale that he's never met saying, come play for us in Big Kahuna Bowl. I have no idea what it is, and I'm on the executive, right? So I think there needs to be a bigger step down.
I'm on the BCCFA executive, and what is the Big Kahuna?
I've never heard of it either.
I've been told that the Big Kahuna Bowl is now replacing the Zone Bowl.
No.
Well, that's.
Well, here's our problem. Nobody knows what it is, and the information
What is
is being
it?
shared.
I've never heard of it.
Well,
This is what we're saying.
It's not part of.
We're the executive. We've never heard of it, so it's not part of our
Okay,
organization.
so we're being told that is replacing Zone Bowl. Is Zone Bowl still gone?
Yeah.
No.
Okay. So speaking as a person who put his name forward this year for Zone Bowl, I reached out on several occasions to, and basically Kayla was the only one who ever responded to me. It's unfortunate that Zone Bowl is not going to happen this year. The people in Kamloops that were going to spearhead this project, one of them is now moved to the island. The other one, we just couldn't get anything out of Corey Philpott. I'm not bad-mouthing Corey Philpott in any way, shape, or manner. I have had several telephone conversations with him now. I didn't really want to talk about it here. But Big Kahuna Bowl is run by Corey Philpott, and a lot of the teams, same type of scenario. The SIFC never had 1 ounce of communication regarding the Kahuna Bowl. And anyways, Big Kahuna Bowl is Corey Philpott run bowl.
Okay, all right.
Can I comment on what your comment was? North Lang is probably, your coaches are probably one of the biggest promoters of the league team, or the rep teams. I know we've constantly had North Langley players on the team, including some really big linemen who played junior instead of midget this year.
Yeah. But though that information, that's not coming from North Langley's, a football association, or our coaches. That's the families going out and finding that on their own.
Okay.
And for me, as president of North Langley now, I would like to be able to be an association that is able to put these packages in front of families and say, these are your opportunities.
Here, here.
Good.
Still.
Thank you.
No, it's actually Carly.
I was just gonna make the point that, like, for these things, they're great and stuff like that, but why you don't get anything from us is because for a tryout, it's an awful lot of money and days off work, and hotels and stuff like that for us to come. That's why you don't see much from our kids.
Appreciate that. We did have one on the island in January, just found out.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
It's just the problem comes when you go to the next step and you're having the Vancouver practices, mainland practices.
nobody takes into account whether you're coming from Prince George or you're coming from the island and you can't get back on a ferry after the practice, and now you've got a hotel room, things like that. Nobody, or now you're traveling to wherever, whether you're playing back east or you're going down to the States, the flight leaves Vancouver at 8 in the morning.
A lot of
I don't know if you've ever been on a ferry. No ferry's gonna get you here by 8 o'clock in the morning. So there's another night's hotel. You come back, you land in Seattle at 9 o'clock. Well, everybody drives home. People on the island, people in Prince George have to get a hotel room. So that $50 fee is now $1,000.
We have a lot of kids that do like the board bowl with Fox 40.
We have
but-
two people that want to speak, and then,
I'm just adding to it, that's all.
okay, two more.
Yeah, just on the request about sending the information out officially for players, we should also make sure we're sending the information out officially for coaches, because I don't think I've ever seen anything saying we're looking for Team BC coaches for U16 or U18. I don't know when my coaches are supposed to put their names forward. I've never seen that, so.
Can I piggyback on to that as well? When you're sending out that information, if you don't know the physical date it's happening, just say it's in April, date TBD, but at least they have an idea of when it's going to be and they can look at their calendar.
Kevin?
It's also in all of the
Kevin.
calendars as well. Websites.
Okay, so you and I have had a million conversations about this topic, and unfortunately, you might not want to hear this, but the damage is done. It's done, so what we need to do is we need to figure out how the hell we're gonna fix this. Now, fixing this is not gonna be an email from Frank to Kevin to Surrey. It's not gonna work. It's just not. I don't care what anyone says. How I think this needs to be fixed, and you're not gonna like this, I think you need to go to every club and you need to have a conversation with the coaches, the executive, the people who are involved, who dedicate all their time. Those are the people you need to get out to. But I just think that, because everyone's talking about communication, I just think you can send all the emails you want and people are gonna open up their email and go, yeah, whatever. But I think if they see you face to face, and I know, I'm sorry, Frank, but it's a lot of time. But I think the BCPFA, because you're only year 2, and we know the people who, we won't name names or associations, Football BC, before you, but it's a pretty bad rap, and me personally, I just don't want the BCPFA to get that label, right? So.
Now, once you talk about communication, this is gonna be the last thing, because we're cutting it off and we're belabored the point to, I think, enough at this point in time.
That's all I have.
One of the biggest problems that the BCCFA has in sending out information, it's all fine when the person who receives the information likes it and passes it on. If they don't like what they read, it stops with that person. And then I get it, well, I didn't get any information. Oh, well, I sent it to these people, how come you didn't get it? They go, I don't know, but I didn't get it. So it's that vicious circle, is that communication is only as good as the people in the chain who keep passing it on. And furthermore, just one more final thing, because I was raked over the coals because I bypassed the thing and sent it out directly. And as a result of that, everybody came after me and said, well, why? I said, because this whole group of people never got the information. And the direct results, so I have to bypass you to get it to them. And this becomes part of our biggest issue. And every single zone said the exact same thing to me and to Valor, in saying communication is essential. And I kept putting up, when do we stop it, and when do we, or why do we stop it versus pushing it forward? And I think that becomes the real important thing. Is it hugely important? Because I'm going to ask for a call for adjournment.
It's just a quick reminder, so you spoke a couple of years ago at camp and whatever else. I think one thing that we all need to keep in mind when it comes to the ID camps and the tryouts and everything, this organization is 2 years old, the BCPFA. Anything that happened prior to 2016 Those people are gone. They don't rule our world anymore. They don't rule these tryouts anymore. We have nothing to do with them. So you have to keep that in the back of your mind going forward as well. Done.
And Frank, you're doing a great
Motion
job.
to adjourn.
Frank, we love you.
All done. Goodbye. Thank you very much for coming out, everybody. It was great. Please, if you got something on your desk, throw it in the garbage, help us out.
Yep. I hear you.
Grab my list.